Okay, I'm going to hop on a few minutes early here. Um, I'm a little confused. YouTube is saying that I'm starting at 11, but I'm starting at 12. So I checked the control panel and I did select 12, but I can see that YouTube is saying starts at 11. I don't know. Um, Here where I live, clocks had to go back an hour last night. Maybe YouTube doesn't have it right. I don't know. Either way, here I am. So if somebody was expecting 11, you've been waiting quite some time. Sorry about that. Um, I think what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to jump over some questions. I scanned the questions. I thought I've answered this question 100 times already. So I'm not going to answer every question. So if your question doesn't get answered, it's because I have in the past answered questions along those lines. I see a couple of questions I seem to get them every single week, the same question again and again. So I'm going to skip them. So let's begin. People are now overreacting and speculating the Fed will lose control of the longer end. How would you explain to them that it's not the case? Uh, it's if I take a position in something and I have a big enough name, what I'd like is everyone else to be on my side and help my position work. I don't want to keep it a secret. It's the one place where you don't want to keep secrets. You want to keep something a secret till you have a position, then you want to tell as many people as you possibly can. So the story starts to get a life of its own, and we end up in extreme places. I think TLT is one of those things. The long end of the curve, I think, is one of those things that is going to extreme places because the narrative sort of has a life of its own right now. Everything, almost all consumer debt and a significant amount of corporate debt is priced off the capital market. You have a treasury that has moved closer into T-bills. So you can have a Fed that can lower short rates very aggressively if there's a belief that the long end of the curve will stay high or elevated without actually easing financial conditions. You would simply just be easing conditions for the treasury in terms of the interest that needs to be paid if they've skewed more towards the money market securities. At some point, the Fed is going to say, this is going in the wrong direction. Right now, I think that they can lower rates at if the yield curve on the long end stays where it is, they can lower rates at every single meeting going forward without loosening financial conditions in the market because mortgages are based off the 10-year, car loans are based off the 5-year. If you have extremely high term premium, you actually are tightening financial policy. So you still have balance sheet runoff, which is still going on at a pace of 40 billion a month. That's contracting the money supply. You have the long end of the curve going up, which is making debt, mortgages, car loans, any of that kind of stuff far more expensive. And creating a hole in the money market that even if you lower the Fed funds rate, it's not really lowering the cost of a lot of debt that's out there, other than short-term floating rate debt. So I think the market has it wrong, but the market has a long history of being wrong. Would you provide your thoughts on U.S. current phase of business cycle? Yeah. We'll pass on that. I answer that way too many times. Take on XLU and NEE. They're down around 10% month to date. Well, NEE is the largest holding in XLU. NEE is going down because of the share issuance, right? There, you gotta follow the company. Go to investor relations and leave your email address. Every time they post something to the SEC site, you'll get a notice of it, and you would have got a notice that they are selling shares. They're doing a share issuance. That's the thing with utilities. If you've watched the Understanding Electric Utilities video in the applied level, I do say that specifically, that they are known for issuing shares. This is the danger that you have to look at. But they typically issue shares to raise cash to increase their assets which guarantees them, and because of the way the regulations work, guarantees them a return on their equity, a return on their capital. So they'll take a short-term hit, but they'll continue to grow with their asset base. But they do issue shares. You do have to be aware of that, right? Surprised to see TLT in the 90s. Well, so am I. I thought 95, 97 made a lot of sense. 90, 91, 90, 91, 92, I think is an opportunity. I still think is an opportunity. It depends on how much voice this narrative gets that, oh, the debt is unsustainable. Well, if the US debt is unsustainable, all debt is unsustainable because the US debt is still perceived as default risk free. You're going to get your money back. So the US yield curve is the term premium. Well, why would any corporate bond have a lower yield? In other words, a negative credit spread? Because if I can get that term premium in a treasury, that's my minimum, which means if you're a corporate bond, I want the same term spread. I want the same time value of money spread on this, but you're not default risk free. So I want more. So the higher the long end of the curve goes, the more expensive everything becomes. So when you roll over your swaps, the fixed rate on the swap is going up at the same time. How long can you go before debt has to be rolled over and swaps have to be rolled over as well? So I personally think it's wrong that the market has that one wrong. I'm surprised to see it there. Love your view on agency MREITs after the big sell off the past couple of weeks. Well, mortgage rates have been going up, right? And agency itself has a bunch of at the market facilities to issue shares. And I think it was last week, earlier in the week, they announced a greater share issuance, at the market share issuance, than what was expected. Being that their net asset value is high $8, $8.90, $8.88, $8.90, somewhere around there, and that they're trading at a premium to that, which I kind of think they should be trading at a premium with rates on the way down, with mortgage rates back on the way up, and issuing more shares than was expected. Yeah, that's why you have a bit of a turn down on that. Again, let me advise you, for every company you're invested in, the first thing you should do the moment you buy any shares is you should go to investor relations and leave your email so that you get all of the news events. The moment they post something to the site, you get a notification, a new Form 4, a new Form 8, a new Form 10. You get all the notifications whenever anything is posted. Portfolio performance. Do you only look at closed positions? Well, no, you got to, at any point in time, you have to look at the value of your portfolio, because if you had to exit today, that's what you would get. And when you price out your portfolio, you have an option in IB to use the midpoint or to use the bid on your long positions and to use the offer on your short positions. That is what you should use, not the midpoint, but for any of your positions, the value of it is where the bid is, not where the midpoint is. Because if you have to sell, you got to sell on the bid. But no, you got to look at the whole thing, not just your close. What would it? Let's say that you made $200 on one position, but you're down $10,000 on another position, but you haven't closed it. Shall you ignore that? Right? No, you gotta do the whole thing. Where are we? Do you think repricing of term premium will justify sustained period of lower prices, or could we see a reversion to higher prices? Hang on a second. I don't know that I would say. I don't know that I would say lower prices. It's rare that prices go in the opposite direction for consumer goods. Usually, consumers opt for lower price models as opposed to prices going down. Typically, when if you get something like this, typically you get more layoffs for companies to preserve They know they can't raise prices to offset rising costs, so they'll look to cut costs. And every time a company cuts $1 from their expense item, that's $1 of revenue gone from somebody else's income statement. So they're more likely, the longer you have an elevated long end of the curve, the steeper that curve gets, the higher that term premium becomes, the more likely companies are going to manage the bottom part of their income statement, not the top line, which would be revenue. What is considered a good Sharpe ratio? I don't really know what would be considered good. I guess anything better than SPY. So just Google Sharpe ratio SPY, and if you are producing a Sharpe ratio better than your benchmark, don't understand the hype around crypto. Okay, I'll pass on crypto. I'm only going to agree with you if you don't understand the hype. The idea of the fallacy of money on the sidelines, I've been very clear on that. That's not money on the sidelines. That's its home. That is its home. There may be some dollars sitting in there waiting to go somewhere, but I'd say the larger part of it is people in retirement right now taking the opportunity to take the next year's spending and move it into the money market, as opposed to do it quarterly. We know that rates are coming down, may as well grab something on the 6 month and the 1 year. So I think that money market funds are probably seeing a large increase because funds coming out of retirements are coming out for the whole year, maybe a year and a half, to park in to grab the yield in the money market funds. And using money market funds make a lot of sense as opposed to securities, because you can just reduce your spending every couple of weeks. You could just sell parts of whatever fund that you're in. So I think the larger part of it has to do with that. I don't think there's money on the sidelines. If it was money on the sidelines, you could understand how come the market's not breaking out to new highs, but all-time high, all-time high, all-time high, all-time high, all-time high. Money on the sidelines? I don't think so. I don't think so. What should we think when companies report negative earnings? I think that earnings are probably not really what you should be paying attention to. Have a look at cash flows. If your company is reporting negative earnings, either, if it has a history of positive earnings, if it's a large cap company and a very stable company and it's reporting negative EPS, there's something wrong with the company. But there are some companies in some sectors where you have to grow first and you're investing in growth. Well, that's going to produce negative earnings per share, but have a look at the cash flows. That's the more important thing. At the same time, they buy back shares. Yeah. So cash flow is probably the more important measurement of profitability for the firm than their earnings per share. Favorite forward-looking macroeconomic data. I don't know that I have a favorite. That can give you the idea of market sectors trend for the following 6 to 12 months. Doesn't exist. Not today. There's nothing that gives you 6 to 12 weeks. I don't think there's anything that gives you 6 to 12 minutes. There is no forward indicator. I don't think ever that's given you 6 to 12 months. Not that I'm aware of. Not at a macro level, no. Example, neighbors demand when they would demand you go to church. My neighbors never demanded that I go to church. That's why my statement there was, I have neighbors that are religious. They go to church, but they do not demand that I participate in their belief system. And because of that, you do you, I'll do me. I feel no need to push back. I don't go to church. I would never go to church. They go to church, but they don't demand that I do. Good enough. So it's not like they demanded that I go. Sounds more like leaning towards manipulation of somebody to certain principles. What would you do in order to get out of such kinds of manipulative people? The point I was making was, you can believe in something, but the moment you start demanding that other people believe in it too, that's when you're going to get pushback. And this is what I was pointing to with a lot of the rise of the progressive wokeism, is there's a certain ideology there. Have your ideology, but it wasn't enough. They began demanding that people participate in this belief system, that we affirm what we clearly see is not true. Well, there's where I have a problem, right? There's where I have a problem is you're demanding I participate in your belief system. No, I demand you participate in mine. Or is this a one-way road, right? So I was making that point. How would you deal with people? Just say no, and don't give them the time of day. If they start blah blah wagging the finger, just walk away from them. Just walk away from them. I mean, treat them the way they're treating you, with disrespect. Just say no and walk away. You should be more this. No. And if they start talking, just put your finger up and pretend you're looking at something like this. And when they're talking, just go, put your finger up in front of their face, demean them. I mean, if they're just gonna wag their finger in your face and demand that you believe what they believe, tell them to fuck off, and then just don't engage with them. That's what I would do, I guess. Thoughts on SoFi? Know nothing about it. Applied level. Wanted to learn financial modeling. Okay, you think it covers enough? Mine? Oh yes, from analyst to model. Yes, it does. What sets yours apart? What sets mine apart is that I don't use any manufactured data at all. It's all real stuff. So the CFAI practical skills module will give you an introduction to financial modeling using manufactured data. Well, that's not fun. I don't start from assumptions and say, here's our assumptions, how do we model this? And I don't use analyst assumptions. So I have subscriptions to all the different sites because I want to see, where they are. Are they doing something interesting that I would say I should do something like this? Or, I tend to think if I'm going to do something, it's got to be better than what's out there every step along the way. And mine is. I know it is because I watch all the other ones. I don't use an analyst forecast to come up with my revenue forecast for Costco. We figure it out. We try to figure out what's the drivers of revenue. So it is heavy on the analyst side and heavy on the modeling side. In the real world, the analyst will come up with all the assumptions. That's where all the value is. But then modeling it out it's time consuming and it's low value. So that's usually given to a financial modeler. Sorry, financial modelers, but it is lower value. Financial modelers don't make 600 grand a year, but a good analyst will make 600 plus a year. Because the value comes in what assumptions are you making, not how do you model revenue once you have it. Excel is a tool and you have people who use the tool. The analysis is the art form. That's where the money is in the analysis. You get the analysis wrong, financial model all you want, play with Excel all you want, be the fastest at Excel that you possibly can be. You're just going to produce nonsense. Unless you have good assumptions, you're not going to have good output. So mine is, my model is, a modeler would look at my model and say, no, you got too much going on. But I'm very clear about what my model is. It is the analyst's model and the financial modeling all into one. Ideally, you would take one worksheet and you would do all of your financial analysis, and then you would send the assumptions to the second worksheet where that would just be your clean model. I did it all in one, but they can be separated. Once you have the assumption side, you can easily separate it into two sheets. I think the analyst part is the better part. Now, if you're doing financial modeling, you are most likely doing it on the sell side, because on the sell side, you're going line by line by line. You want to know as much as you possibly can, as precise as you possibly can about what EPS is, about what your price target is. If you're doing it on the buy side, you just need you need enough to get to a good story. Typically, you're good once you get to EBIT, especially for companies with good, solid capital structures that don't seem to change much. For high yield, you'd go a little bit further, but you certainly wouldn't be pulling apart a lot of the different line items that could be meaningless to the story, that are more operational. So it depends on what side you're on. If you're on the buy side, I find that once you get to your operating profit, if you see, well, debt is 20% of the capital, I don't really care much beyond that. The interest expense and interest income isn't going to change my story. My story has happened in the revenues and in the margins, and that's it. So that side is the analyst side, hands down. Hands down. You don't even need a financial modeler at that point if you have the analyst. So that's the difference between it, is I'm giving you the full look from the analyst to the modeler, where the analyst is where the money is made in this industry, not in modeling. Modeling is like you're my assistant, and I'm done all the brain work, and I give it to you and I say, okay, model this. You're just using a tool at that point, right? So that's the big difference. We're done Costco as of tomorrow. I finished the videos yesterday. The model balances. So the model is done. Now we just go into interesting things like sensitivity analysis, scenario analysis, and then we'll update the model. What happens when you get a new year of data? How do you incorporate that and everything? It should be simple to do. It should not be line item by line item. It should be something nice and easy to do. So we're going to update the model and see what happens. And all we have to do, we should really only be updating the income statement and the balance sheet. Everything else should flow from that. I think the way it's set up, I'd be updating some things on the cash flow statement. Yeah, just those three statements, but all the schedules should automatically recalculate all your assumptions that you made based on new data. Then we go on to CapREIT, which the first model takes the longest time because I want to show you every step. Once I go into CapREIT, I can go quickly because I don't have to show you how to model in Excel every single time the same thing again and again. Now you know how to do it. I just have to show you how to get the assumptions. How do you model a REIT? Not the same way you would with Costco. What happens when you get to a technology company? What happens when you get to a company that has three distinct segments, all with different growth rates and different margins? So we're going to, on a going forward basis, rather than look at a whole company, because some things in the company, you don't really need to see how to model, how to do a debt schedule again. You don't need to see how to do certain schedules again. I'm going to pick and choose certain companies where, okay, the debt schedule here is particularly challenging. For this company, the asset schedule is particularly challenging. For this company here, the revenue schedule is particularly challenging. But once you get the revenue schedule, working capital schedule pretty much falls into place, even for the complex companies. So rather than doing whole companies, we'll just pick and choose a couple of, a bunch of companies where this is complex and this is complex and this is complex. How would you model a bank, for example? How would you model a mortgage REIT, for example, right? So once you get usually the problem's either in the revenue schedule or in some of the other schedules, especially for a small company with a lot of debt and a lot of debt that's perhaps convertible, for example. And some debt is convertible with call options, which are really exciting because they're non-dilutive, right? So if you have solid cash flow, but you just can't raise debt, you can do convertible debt, which will be well received, and you can use a derivative to turn your convertible debt into non-convertible debt. That's clever, right? How would you model that? So we'll just pick on a whole bunch of different scenarios from a whole bunch of different companies as opposed to one company all the way through each time. Now, that's what's different. And I won't stop. I mean, there's no limit to what I'll add. It's not as if, okay, it's done, it's ready to go. I want to become an independent trader. Do you think I should focus heavily on technical analysis? Well, you're asking me. My answer would be no. My answer would be no, but that wouldn't be everybody's answer. If you say I'm going to be a currency trader, I'd say, "Well, why would you want to do that?" But let's say that that's what you wanted to do. Well, most of the currency traders, the spot monkeys out there, are trading technically. So you pretty much have to trade technically because you got to see exactly what the other crazy people are seeing so that you don't get steamrolled. What essential skills would you recommend aiming to trade professionally? A day trader. Well, a day trader is not a professional trader. Okay, a day trader is sort of, like if you think about Hollywood, there are A-listers, there's the B list, the C, and then the D list. Day traders are kind of like the finance industry's D list. They're sort of like the door-to-door vacuum cleaner salespeople of the marketing industry. They're kind of like the auto insurance salespeople of the insurance industry, right? It's you've trickled down to the bottom of the industry. So professional trader is not a day trader. I would recommend you stay away from day trading altogether because day trading is about the signal. Is about the noise, not the signal. Is you're trying to find patterns in randomness because most of what happens during the day is random. A lot of the big moves come overnight. From the time the market closes to the time the market opens, a lot of the big moves in the market happen overnight so that they're already priced in when the market opens. And then during the daytime, it's like, well, who's going to take profit? Who's going to buy? It's randomness that you're trying to play. I wouldn't mess around with day trading. Will a financial model on Intel be another example on your applied series you may add? Parts of Intel, I think Intel is probably a good one to model some of the parts, to model as segments. How do you let's have a look at the foundry. Let's have a look at some of its smaller businesses. Let's have a look at the PC market. And you can model it that way. And I think the PC market would be fairly straightforward. The foundry would be challenging because you got to make some assumptions on significant customers and growth rates. So Intel would be a good one for some of the parts. But being that it's in a reorganization mode, it's going to be really challenging to do because reorganization is a break from the past. So you can't use the past as a guide. You have to use your assessment of management's ability to execute on a plan. Do you model the plan that they're saying, or do you have skepticism and say, I don't see that working out? And if they're selling a division, how do you account for that? That's usually something you don't really model when somebody's selling a division. Is you model it as a potential amount of cash coming in. Where would that cash go? Most likely to debt. But being that it is in this reorganization phase, significant reorganization phase, it would be challenging because everything would depend on your assumptions. That you really couldn't use a lot of the trajectory of the past, because a reorganization is an intentional break with the past, saying the past hasn't been working, we're intentionally changing. You have their plan, but you have no execution results yet. So it's, well, what do I use? Do I use the plan? All plans are usually very rosy, right? And usually they're very ambitious and the things happen faster than you expect. So it's not uncommon for a bunch of stuff to be thrown out as well. Well, you got to make some assessments of, well, how much stuff is going to be thrown out. So it can be very challenging looking at turnarounds. Do you hear the latest news? Oh, what do you answer that? Thoughts on Supermicro? Well, they report earnings this week. So I guess what I would say is tune in. You have an auditor quitting is usually not a good sign, because an auditor's in the business of generating revenue, period, right? All firms are in the business of generating revenue. For publicly traded firms, audit fees are big. They're big. So you don't want to just be throwing them away. So there has to be something wrong if the auditor is distancing themselves, and the auditor is looking at this stuff, has an inside view that other than management, no one has, and they're distancing themselves from this. That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. Where can we see your live session schedule? I don't have a schedule. I think what I'll do is Wednesday nights. I'll do every Wednesday night. I'll do a live feed. We'll just call it Wednesday night. And then if I do any other special ones, I wouldn't know them anyways to put them on a schedule. When you set your stop loss target, is it in value or percentage? It's more in comfort and psychology. And I don't really use stop losses because I don't want to get stopped out. I want to make the decision that I'm done. Oftentimes, if I'm uncomfortable with a position, I look at my delta, and I'll move my delta towards zero. So if I have a lot of positive delta, and this thing is working against me, I think, okay, well, let's move my delta towards zero, which means closing some positions or doing something which gives me negative delta. So TLT, I've sold puts that gives me positive delta. It's been going down. Maybe I want to add some negative delta. That would be selling calls, selling some upside calls to lower my delta, moving closer to zero. So I don't necessarily use stop losses I'm in, I'm out, because that's a binary choice, right? I have this delta or I don't have this delta. Whereas what I do is like a volume control. I can add delta. Oh, I don't like it. I can do some things that lower my delta as opposed to just in, out, in, out, in, out, right? So I can stay in the game longer. But when I decide that I'm done, it's where I see that, I'm tired of this position. I don't see it recovering. And the premiums on the options, if I can keep getting these premiums, it'll be 7 months for me to break even. You know what? I'm done. At that point, if I don't see profitability in hedging and in risk management, if there's no profitability in risk management, look, you're going to have losses. Everybody has losses every year. Everybody has positions that lose. Everybody. You have to get comfortable with saying, okay, well, this one didn't work. Move on. I don't like it. I don't like it any more than anybody else likes it. To lose money on a position because you think, if I never did this, I'd be that much up. Well, yeah, but if you never did this one, you wouldn't have made that money. And if you didn't do this one, you wouldn't have made that money. So you did this one, it lost, but you can't engage in this revisionist thinking. It's just you have to understand the nature of the game you play. Every winning team in any sport has been scored on, right? No one has no football team has 33-0, 73-0, 56-0. No team has that. They all have touchdowns scored on them. Baseball teams all have runs scored on them. Every pitcher has a home run hit that happens at some point in time. It's the portfolio you have to look at, not each individual transaction. So there are times where I just get to a point where it's like, okay, enough is enough with this one. I'm done. I'm kind of there with Goodyear Tire. I thought with their reorganization plan and the amount that they had pulled back, I thought, okay, I think there's some value here. I don't see them going much lower, and they did, like $4 lower from the 12 down into the 8s. They have earnings on Monday. If they don't get support on earnings, I'm out. If they can't pull it off in earnings, I'm out. Now it's kind of bad timing because they could have decent enough earnings and still sell off simply because of the nature of the background market that they happen to be in. That no matter what you do, you were going to sell off. I don't know. But either way, there comes a time where you have to say, enough is enough. Where are we here? High attendance at Wednesday's live session. Might be due to your caption using names like Trump, Harris. Well, yeah, I get it. I get that. With election just a week away, this topic is likely to attract more viewers. Yeah. That's sort of a pushback to me saying I'm going to move the live to a weeknight because I had good attendance. Yeah, you got a point. The attendance might have been just because I said Trump, Harris. So what I can do during weeknights is choose my title of my live based on the biggest news event that week, right? I just bring people in. It had nothing to do with that title. Do you believe the U.S. is capable of returning to the moon in the next 5 to 7 years? Well, yeah, the U.S. You mean NASA? Maybe not. I don't know if the appetite is there to spend the money on it. Do you mean a private company? Yeah. But I guess the big question would be why? If you're thinking about, well, to set up a base as a launch pad for Mars, I guess, I don't know. Do you take climate change into consideration in planning your next destination? No. No. What do you think about Search GPT? Yeah, Google has got some competition coming in, right? Meta is doing the same thing with Llama Search. There's going to be competition. Everything eventually has competition. Every monopoly eventually ends. Every business eventually dies. Every innovation is eventually replaced. They all are. If you look at the companies in existence today, probably 90% of them didn't even exist 30 years ago. And I'd say 99% of them didn't even exist 60 years ago. And companies that existed 100 years ago are small group of companies, usually in protected industries. Every winner becomes a loser. Every company, every innovation you can think of today eventually dies. In 30 years, we'll be saying, AI, is that still around? How come we're not using quantum loop? Whatever the case, I can't think of any made up word, but there'll be something new that replaces that, and on and on and on we go. The one constant in all of social history is change. It is the one constant. So it's hard to think, well, what could replace Google? Well, you never know. All right. What was on the other day in the gym? I have a gym downstairs. This episode of Star Trek was on. And it just sort of caught my attention. I was watching it and, computer, run an analysis on, I thought, we're already starting to do that. This was in the 90s when you had no tactile interface for the computer. You just had a voice interface for the computer. Maybe we're moving to that. So what disappears eventually? Maybe the keyboard. That in 30 years, you have a 15-year-old going, did you really enter stuff into the computer by hitting keys on a square thing? And you 21-year-olds will be saying to your grandkids at that time, yeah, we did. And it was connected to the computer. And it'll be just as foreign. Did you actually move this thing around on the table to move something around on the screen? You didn't just use your hand? Yeah, we did. Right? It's kind of like you talk to a 20-year-old now and you say, well, when I was young, we had a telephone that was attached to the wall in the house that you could only go so far with. And if you left the house, that was it. That was it. Nobody could get in touch with you if you left the house. When you got home, did anybody call? Right now, it's like, are you serious? You mean you didn't have it with you? Like, it's just so foreign to them. Whatever we have today, in 20 years, 30 years, it'll be gone. So what do I think about it? I think, well, it's a natural part of the change of everything, unless Google can come up with something to maintain its dominance. Yeah. You said over time, the value stock will win in the long run. Growth stock will be growthy for a while, then it disappears and won. I didn't say it disappears. I didn't say the stock disappears, but all growth stocks turn to value stocks. You can't grow forever. This is the argument, when we think about if size is so efficient, why is the whole economy not just one firm? If size is that efficient, why is it not just one single firm? Growth eventually ends. So as you get bigger, you turn into a value firm. All growth stocks today, if they survive in 20 years, will be value stocks. And value stocks either find a place where they can continually satisfy some part of the market until they get, until a new innovation comes and obsoletes them, um, or they disappear. Um, of all the companies that have ever existed, of all the companies that have ever existed, 99.5% of them are gone. All the companies you see in the world today, it's like 0.5% of all the companies that have ever existed. Think about that for a minute. The majority, vast majority, over 99% of all companies that have ever existed ever are gone. Are gone. And the companies, make a list of the 50 most, go into the S&P and the 50 biggest companies, and come back in 20 years. It'll be the list of the 50 biggest companies will be different, right? Will be 80% different. 80% different. Where did we leave off here? Why you said to avoid IPOs? I don't know if I said avoid IPOs. I don't bother with them because I don't know. You're getting involved in a whole bunch of hype on day one. If there is something to it, you're going to pay the price on day one. It's just too much of a gamble for me to take on data that's not sufficient enough to base the decision on. Can reason be that okay, that's going on. I'm bullish on TLT considering January 15, 2027, 92 call for a hunt for 10. 2027, why so far out? Any downside to such long-term options? Yeah, there's so much time value in that I think you could do better with something closer. That time value is not going to, so the premium's not going to respond as well to a change in the underlying. I don't know that I would go that far out at all. I'd try to find something closer. If you like the 92 calls, I seem to think that if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen in the next 6 months. That if the market is wrong, we're going to find out in the next 6 months that it's wrong. I would choose a shorter duration. I have 93 calls for June. Years in market, how much do you think the market just runs on mass psychology? To a significant extent, it does. It does run on mass psychology until you get fundamentals that show up. And the fundamentals always show up. But in some things, you can just get a narrative that runs away with itself, and off it goes. That was the dot-com boom, was this narrative of how it's all going to be different, how everything is going to change. Bricks and mortar are going to disappear. There'll be no malls. There'll be no stores. Everything will be online. So everyone was rushing online. Now we have that with AI and how it's going to change everything that's out there. And I think the time frame for that is going to be much longer than what we think it is. But that doesn't stop the narrative, and people love a good story. So yeah, I think there's a lot to it. Again, in a market, you don't want to keep things secret. Once you take your position, you want to tell as many people as you possibly can, because you want them to do the same thing. That's how you generate your return, by having something move in the direction that you're betting in. Went long TLT, long SPY, long EM on Friday. Seems like Harris would be the best outcome for those trades. I don't know. If we take it superficially, and I think that the analysis done by the CBO about Trump adding a lot more than Harris is taking both candidates at their word. That Harris will do what she says she's going to do, and Trump will do what he says he's going to do, and here's the result, in a very linear fashion. There are always trade-offs, and I don't think they're accounting for the trade-offs. Neither one of them are going to do exactly what they say they're going to do. Neither one of them. That's just politics. There's saying shit to win the election, and then there's doing stuff. So she's saying a lot of stuff that will probably not get done or be difficult to get done, or be thrown to the sidelines as, well, that got me the votes, but we can let that one go. Both of them will do that. I think Harris will be business as usual. I think if she wins, you get inaugurated, and February of 2025 will look pretty much like February of 2024 in terms of policy. It will be a continuation of whatever we currently have right now. There'll be talk about increased taxes, and there'll be talk about increased spending, because that's what they do. They're not going to increase taxes to lower the deficit. Why lower the deficit when no one's going to lower the deficit? I won't get punished for lowering the deficit. I'll lose votes if I do, so I'll just keep it going because I want to be here for 8 years. So there'll be more spending and there'll be more taxation. So taxes from you, you're not going to do as well, but I'm going to give the money to you and you'll spend the money that I took from them. When I start talking a lot during the day, because I'm always alone. So when you start talking, it takes a while for your voice to get into the habit of talking for a period of time. So I think that's what we can expect from Harris, in which case I don't know that would be friendly to TLT. I think that would allow the narrative out there now that rising deficits, rising debt to continue, because I don't know that she would be too concerned with it. Because the revenue increases would pay for the spending. There'll be deficits, but what you'll hear, I think, and what you always hear is, it pays for itself, folks. It pays for itself. This will pay for itself. This spending will pay for itself. It always pays for itself, and it never does. But they'll tell you it pays for itself, but it never will, because they think you're stupid. They think you're stupid, and those are your politicians. No matter what side they're on, they think you're stupid. So they say stupid things. Trump, on the other hand, you're not going to raise. I don't look for a raise in taxes, not income taxes. You might get consumption tax. That's what a tariff is. It really is a consumption tax. But I think they're serious about cutting spending. I think this one they're serious on, about sending Elon Musk in there with a chainsaw to cut things down. Even the front runner for the Treasury Department saying, I'll work with the guy. Yeah, we'll take $2 trillion out. They're the only ones really talking about it. That if he wins and they start talking about a bigger role for Musk and about the Office of Efficiency, Government Efficiency, or Department of Government Efficiency, that spells out Doge. I guess that's supposed to be funny. I don't know. I think you could get more upside on TLT with that than you can with Harris, I think. But, taking Trump at his word, he's going to raise tariffs 20% across the board. I don't quite see that. I think he'll hit China with tariffs right away, because, as I've said before, you cannot walk into a room with a baseball bat and have people fear you unless you use the baseball bat first. You've got to bash somebody over the head with that baseball bat, or it's just a baseball bat, right? Once you walk in the room and you beat the hell out of somebody with that baseball bat, now you're in a position to negotiate, because everyone else saw you do it, right? You got to use it. So he's got to use tariffs. If he's going to use it as a negotiating tool, you got to use it. And I think he'll use it on China probably very quickly, on things that probably he can't lose on, and then negotiate with other countries. That if I had to think about, if I knew for sure Harris was going to win, I would absolutely sell calls on my TLT position Monday morning. Absolutely sell calls. If I knew for sure Trump was going to win, I would hold off. I would hold off and listen to what the Fed had to say at that point, because he wants lower interest rates, period. He wants lower interest rates because he's in real estate. Of course, he wants lower interest rates. and then just see where the conversation goes about cutting the deficit. And if that starts to get a life of its own, well, you know how the narrative can move markets. It'll swing the other way. I'd be less willing to sell calls. But if you told me, look, I've been to Wednesday morning, and now I'm back, and I'm telling you, Harris won, I would immediately sell calls on my TLT position at 92, 93, whatever the case is. But I'd try to minimize. I try to move my delta to zero very quickly if I knew that that was the case. Well, actually, let me back off of that. I wouldn't do it right away. I'd wait for her to win. There'd be a rally, and then I'd sell calls on that rally because I think it would be a false rally. I don't think it would hold. Yeah, maybe not right away, but if she does win, I would look to sell calls on my TLT. I think she would probably be more a Harris administration, I think, would support the short trade on the long curve more than a Trump administration. In reality, in belief, it would be the other way around. So yeah, I would wait till after the election to do that. Munger or Buffett or any famous people say anything, people take it as gospel truth. Yeah, well, that's if you have a name, that's your alpha, right? If I had millions of people listening to me and I took a position in something, I would know that part of my success is because I took the position. I can't keep that secret. I got to let you all know. I got to tell you, I'm going on CNBC, I'm going on Bloomberg, I'm telling you what I'm doing because I'm the alpha. I'm the alpha. And then you will do things, even if the fundamentals eventually show that I would have been wrong if I kept it quiet. I can't take the chance that I'm wrong. I need you all to believe me. And because I tell everyone, it'll start moving in that direction. I'm right. I'll always be right. I'll always be right by exercising my name. So I agree. I agree. If duration is your number one conviction, would it not be better for XLU to be the number one bet for that conviction rather than TLT? TLT is not going to dilute itself. XLU, the members of XLU can issue more shares, which means the price per share would drop, right? Because if you issue more shares, the earnings per share drop. If you keep the same multiple, you get a lower price per share until they invest in assets and show that they can actually still increase earnings per share even with increased share count. So you have company-specific events that can happen. TLT has no company, has no income statement, has no balance sheet, has no management decisions. It is just what it is. Yeah. I'm not sure TLT will remain your number one conviction, given your comments on the nerve becoming a long-term story. You may bail. Well, that's just it, right? What I'm trying to figure out right now is TLT actually, you know what? I'm not going to get into it because I'm doing a video later today for the applied level. For the new positions video, I want to do a deeper dive into my decision tree on TLT to show exactly what my thought process is, exactly where I am, because that seems to be the feedback I got is give us more. Don't tell us everything. Give us one and go really deep on one. So I'm going to do that with TLT later today. So that'll be up tomorrow. So I don't want to say too much here. It will be in the positions folder. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm going to do it today. Because I have done my decision tree in my head thinking, well, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. So I may as well just do it that way. So I won't talk about TLT here. If money is not backed by anything, it can only be issued by creating debt. Well, all money is debt. All money is an obligation of the Treasury. All money is basically debt, right? Therefore, you have to sell more debt to offset the inflation created. You mean somebody has to buy back the debt? You have to sell more debt to offset the inflation created by money creation. I'm trying to find the logic here. Okay, I see where you're going. that if you're increasing the money supply, you got money floating around out there, you have to extract that money out of the economy somehow. The Treasury sells bonds, money goes into bonds, the Treasury takes it out. That only works if the Treasury keeps it in the TGA. In other words, the Treasury doesn't do anything with it. Then it's just pulling money out of the system. It's not part of reserves. The TGA is not part of federal, well, it's on the Fed's balance sheet, but it's not part of the reserves. You can pull money out of the system by doing that, sure. Someone posted this on the tweet. Pretty sure this is wrong. Well, no, it's not wrong, but I guess if somebody said that to me, I'd say, and what's your point? Like, what's your point behind that? How deep can the long end of the yield curve go during the election night? How deep? What do you mean by deep? How deep can it go, or how high can it go? How high can yields go, or how low? I don't know. Beats me. I mean, how high can they go? I don't have a clue. How much of your portfolio would you be willing to allocate to GM? More than 2%, 5%, 6%, 7%, depends on where it goes. But I don't see it's been outperforming for quite some time. Every quarter it performs. Every quarter it comes back, and you have a company saying, okay, we have 1.1 billion shares. We want to get under 1 billion by the first quarter of next year. You're buying back roughly 10% of your stock again by the first quarter of next year. And they're not going to stop because they don't get any respect. They have, I think, the lowest forward multiple in the S&P 500 with huge free cash flow generation, huge share buybacks, and no respect. No respect. So they're going to keep doing it. So yeah, I think I would go 4, 5, 6, 7%. The lower they go, the more willing I am to buy it. How long can 10-year yields stay heightened? Well, there is no 6 weeks, 3 days. I mean, there is no answer for that. Impacted by possible Trump and Republican sweep, tariff and other policies, short-term effects. So all of these things, a lot of it in the aftermath is going to depend on the perception of what it means. So it's interpretation, not fundamental reality, but interpretation of what the fundamentals will be. So it's not a question of saying, what will it do to this? What will it do to that? It's more of what does the market believe it will do to this, and what does the market believe it will do to that? And that's where we will go. We will go in the direction of what the market believes it will be, not what we think it will be, right? Keynes, I think, had this right when he said the market is like a beauty contest. Your job is not to pick the prettiest girl. Your job is to pick what you think everyone else thinks the prettiest girl is. So you may say, well, this is the prettiest girl by far. But if the market is onto some other narrative that blonde hair is out and blue eyes are disgusting and you got to go with black eyes and black hair, well, then this one's going to win. It's what everyone believes it's going to be. So in the election outcome, you can't say, okay, if Trump wins, this will happen, this will happen. No. If Trump wins, people believe that this will happen. People believe that that will happen. That's what they're going to do. They'll act in accordance with their belief. If the market believes that this is the outcome, that's what's going to happen. So the Mexican peso, if Trump wins, the peso is going to take a shit, a big shit. We're at 20.25, 20.5, somewhere around there. You could see 21.5, 22, 22.5, easy. Because the market believes that Trump will throw a whole bunch of tariffs on Mexico without the tariffs actually being there. They believe it will be there. That will be, in my opinion, the overreaction. I'm not going to do it before. I'm going to wait. If he wins, I'm going to watch that peso. It's going to go ridiculous, and I'm going to start grabbing it on the way up. I don't know where it's going to stop. but I will grab it on the way up on the belief that it's what everyone believes, but it's not what will be fundamentally supported. So I will fade the initial move. Could the volatility around elections and Fed meeting a good opportunity to sell some covered calls on TLT to generate more income? Yeah, I think it could. Any rally on TLT on Harris looking like she's going to win. Now TLT is an equity. Options only trade from 9:30 to 4. So if you get a Harris victory in the middle of the night, by the time you get to the morning, all the euphoria could fade away, because that's kind of what happens these days. And your opportunity to sell calls may disappear. So yields could drop. TLT could look like it's going to open higher, and then you get to 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, 9:30. It's all gone. And it's like, for crying out loud. This is why with the futures market, you could say, okay, well, I can't do TLT, but I can certainly do ZB, which is the futures contract for the long bond, right? So I can sell calls on ZB because ZB and TLT have 100% correlation. They move together. So you can use something else as a proxy if you can trade in the night. If you're waiting for 9:30, the euphoria could disappear by 9:30. How many times have you seen that happen? Where something is, TLT in pre-market at 8 o'clock is up 80 cents, and by the time we open, it's down 10 cents. Like, well, it all disappeared. I didn't have time to do anything on the options. Okay, where did we leave off? Lots of questions here. There we go. Okay. Modeling Visa, not right away. What do you think of going along the VIX as tail hedge? Increase the result is not strict. Of going along the VIX as tail hedge in case the result is not a straight. Well, then you're just betting on an outcome, right? I don't like the VIX because I think they're just easier ways to do this. Here's the thing. I'm not doing anything before Tuesday. The only things I'm going to do is if, I'm in some of the Canadian apartment REITs and they've been pulling back. If they pull back more, I'm going to add more. That's all I'm doing, is just adding to existing positions that I'm comfortable with no matter who wins. But I'm not making any move until I start seeing the results on Tuesday night. And if there's no winner, God, I don't want that outcome. I don't care who wins. Just please, somebody win, just so I know what direction I'm going in. Do you see service inflation sticking around? Yeah, but that's not inflation, right? If you have costs that are going up in this sector and this sector, those are just prices going up. That's not inflation. Inflation is a broad-based increase in the price level. Broad-based. We don't have a broad-based increase anymore. We have this and this going up and mostly everything coming down. That you have more of a broad-based decrease in the price level. It's just these little things are adding to inflation. Higher interest rates aren't going to solve the problem in healthcare or housing. So lower rates are the only thing lower rates may not solve healthcare, any price pressure in healthcare, but that's not broad-based. If price increases are held to a particular sector, that's that sector. It may have a disproportionate effect on the overall price level, but is no longer broad-based, in which case the interest rate is not going to help solve that problem. So at this point, I would say, what would it matter if healthcare and insurance stayed elevated? It's not enough. What conspiracy theory do you believe? Well, I don't know. I don't think any. But I may believe in things that you go, oh, well, that's a conspiracy theory. I don't know. What's your definition of what is a conspiracy theory? Is a conspiracy theory anything you don't currently believe, that other people believe, that you think, oh, well, that's just a conspiracy theory? If I don't believe it, it must be I would have to say, what's your definition of a conspiracy theory, right? How did you get 16.5 duration for TLT? It's right in their term sheet, right in their tear sheet. If you look look up the description for TLT. TLT will tell you exactly what their duration is. Can you spend a few minutes about GEX? Not really. I don't know what that is. How is Bank of Canada going to continue cutting rates without deteriorating the housing market? Don't you think the housing market needs some deterioration? Don't you think that prices are a little bit ridiculous right now? If you keep rates high, you probably deteriorate the housing market. Well, you wouldn't deteriorate the housing market. You'd exacerbate, I think, unaffordability because you keep supply low. At some point, there is a disjoint between average wages and housing prices. I think we can all see that. There's a generation of people right now that unless something changes are sentenced to being renters the rest of their lives. They'll never be able to buy unless they get an inheritance from their parents. And even if they get an inheritance from their parents, there's no guarantee they'll get it because you have a government that'll step in and say, we got to tax capital somewhere. And inheritances seem like a pretty good place to start because it wasn't your money to begin with, right? So I think you need some narrowing of that gap between average wages and housing prices. I think you need a period of time for housing prices to go sideways. They don't necessarily have to come down. Just give us 10 years of sideways pricing with incomes rising. Affordability will fix itself. But Bank of Canada will continue to cut rates, I believe. Trump gets elected. Do you think you would actually consider defaulting on debt? No. No, that would be absolutely stupid. No, I don't think he would even consider that. Biggest takeaways from your first business. That business school does not prepare you one iota for the real world. Not one iota for the real world. That's my biggest takeaway. It's heavy on textbook stuff and very light on the practicalities of living in the real world. I would say that is true with finance degrees as well. Get a finance degree. Okay, here's a screen. Make me some money today. Most like deer in the headlights. It does not prepare you for the realities of the real world at all. It gives you a good definition. A good vocabulary of words and buzzwords and terminology so that you can understand things. It gives you sort of some theoretical things that you can work with, but the world is way ahead of the academics. What you learn in any marketing class today, in any university, is obsolete. It's obsolete. It's obsolete. Anything you learn in marketing today is obsolete. So my biggest takeaway from my first business was how terribly business school actually prepares you for the real world. Any thoughts on ABR's earnings release? I thought it was good. I didn't see them post book value this quarter. Any update on the probe? Well, they would have said something. I'm sure I didn't listen to the earnings call. Too many other important things going on. Didn't listen to the earnings call, but they continue to perform. The share price performed well until the duration trade started to take a hold of them, and they're going to trade in the same direction as duration. So it's, I don't know if they're going to have much of a chance for a rally unless we get some break in the long end of the curve and some break on the 10-year. I guess I'll listen to this tonight. How are you thinking about the term premium on the 10-year, inflation expectation and deficits driving higher yields? Well, that's the thinking out there. That's what's going on. That is the belief. I'm not buying into the belief, but I can't say that the belief isn't having an effect. It is. It seems like you're becoming more concerned in TLT. Not more concerned. More, I wouldn't say I'm concerned. I'd say that it's probably getting close to the time to bring in some risk management, right? Whether I'm concerned or not, it just, If the belief is going to prevail for a couple of months, I may as well trade the belief as well. I may as well sell calls and trade the belief if the belief is going to persist for a couple more months. Markets aside, where do you enjoy? Okay, let's try to stick with markets here. Long-term narrative on longer-term yields have changed, and you have to get out of your position. I wouldn't get out of my position. How would you do it? I would lower my delta towards zero by selling calls, but I wouldn't get out of my position. No, I would not. Pathway level 3, has your view changed? No, it has not. It's portfolio management for 2025. That's where I would stay. It has not changed because the content has not changed. It's going to be the same content I read for 2025. Ask me that question when I see the 2026 content. If they fixed it and changed it, that would be where you'd say, are you still on portfolio management? But content hasn't changed for 2025. Thoughts on selling Trump winning California? Winning California, a 25-1 shot? He's not going to win California. He's not going to win. Anybody that could have helped him in California now lives in Texas, right? I mean, his support has left California because California is just it. No, California is not even a fight. You can put that in the Harris column as a win right now. You can put it there. Extensive research on different countries before choosing to move to Costa Rica. Did you happen to look into Georgia as well? No, I did not. You said beating the market means beating a benchmark. Is that index like, yeah, exactly. Can you vouch for Dr. Mark's financial modeling? Pretty sure it's one of the best out there. Oh, can vouch for Dr. Mark's financial modeling. There was a preview. I did put a free preview up. I think that's expired now, but I did put a free preview up. What's your take on oils? Oil or oils? Oils plural? I think you mean oil. There's a lot of it in the world. I think we're probably at peak demand. I think as far as energy production goes, I think a lot of countries are looking to coal. U.S. is looking to nuclear, or at least private companies are looking to nuclear and natural gas as a transition fuel to something. Not so much on oil. There's a lot of it out there. But you have Iran and Israel. Iran is threatening to punch back now. And you got to game theory this thing out, that if I were Iran, what would I be thinking about? I got to think about the election, right? And what if Harris wins? Then support for more attack on Iran would be minimal unless Iran does something again, in which case I'm less likely to do anything if Harris wins. But if Trump wins, Trump has already publicly supported hitting nuclear facilities in Iran. Why wouldn't you? You'd be crazy not to. To hit them, you need U.S. weapons, of which Biden was unwilling to provide and Harris would be unwilling to provide. But Trump would be willing to provide. So if I were Iran and I saw that Trump is going to win, I would say there's a very high probability they're going to hit us. So we may as well hit them now. We may as well, because why would we just get hit and just allow ourselves to get hit? We may as well, right? We may as well try to take out as much of their capability to hit us as we possibly can. I might game it out that way, that if I'm going to die anyways, I may as well kill a bunch of people on the way out, right? So that could be their take, which case oil would go straight up. I think on a Trump victory, the drill, baby drill, I don't think is going to matter because with enhanced oil recovery, you've never had output in the U.S. like you've had. The highest output ever. The largest oil producing country in the world is the U.S. There's not an oil problem in the U.S. The drill, baby drill is not going to matter. It's Iran that's going to matter. A Trump victory, I think you could see a spike in oil. A Harris victory, I think you'd see a drop in oil. That's the best way that I can think about it right now. But that doesn't mean the market's going to agree with me, right? Sorry, asking another question concerning my last question. I didn't see that one. How is the U.S. investment income tax for non-U.S. residents in territorial tax countries? It has a withholding. No, nothing on the capital gains, but you got a 30% withholding on any income, any dividends, and any interest. So you buy as many zero coupon. If you're going to be in bonds, buy zero coupon. If you're going to be in dividend paying stocks, use synthetics to create your position. Synthetics, you don't have an income stream to it, right? It's smuggled into the premiums. Share your thoughts on how potential 100% U.S. import tariffs impact the Canadian economy. I don't see that happening, and to think about how it would do anything, it's one of those things that I just don't see happening. So I wouldn't waste any of my time thinking how that would impact anything, because I just don't see it. There's way too much cross-border business going on within an industry itself. Like, just take the auto industry. There's so much going on that goes from Windsor into Detroit and then back, the value added that goes back and forth. If you are trying to protect the U.S. auto industry by keeping Chinese EVs out, you cannot hit the Canadian border with a tariff on that stuff, because you would destroy the U.S. auto industry. It can't be done. So I don't even think that that's a possibility. How would you interpret the overall Vega amount on the portfolio monitor on IBKR? It is a theoretical. All of this is theoretical, right? It is a theoretical amount. Oh, the Vega. Hang on, I was about to go into theta. Well, theoretically, it is the change in the value of the portfolio for a 1% change in volatility. Theoretical, much like duration. Any duration calculation is theoretical. Beta, theoretical. It's all theory. There is a decent enough correlation with what actually happens with theory that we can adopt theory, but it's our best guess of what's going to happen. It doesn't have to happen. It's just our best guess of what's going to happen. You said the market is whatever the benchmark happens to be. What do you mean? Well, if the S&P is up 10%, it's up 10%. It's up 10%. I mean, it is whatever it's going to be. So if you say, did you beat the market? The market is what the market is. Right? I don't know how much more clear to be on that. It is going to be what it's going to be. What do you think of lithium and lithium miners? Do you think the price of lithium will rise? I don't know. I see a shift in thinking lately that the world will be an all EV world by 2035. To EV will have a role to play by 2035, right? That it's maybe not. I still think battery storage for utilities and battery storage for households makes a lot of sense. So, but I don't see this big move to EVs by 2035. So I think lithium, yeah, I wouldn't look for a big bull run on that. In buying puts on SPY and IWM, a better strategy than holding 20-30% cash, allowing reinvestment at lower prices and market downturn is expected. If you buy a put and none of these things go down, you're just losing money. You just keep consistently losing money if you buy puts. What do you mean by fair price and correct price of a stock are the same? I don't know what that's flowing from. I don't recall saying that today. And if you know, you'd have to give me a context in which that was said in the past. I can't remember. How to find meaning in life. We'll pass on that. Would you be open to doing a gym office hour? I like listening you talk about your gym and gym experiences. I don't know that there's so many people on YouTube that this is their life. That I think if you're looking for something related to that, there are people out there that it's their life. I think look for some of these people. I don't have any particular expertise in it other than what I do for myself, but um, I would never consider myself an expert on that stuff. In which case, I think you can get more value out of people who are trainers, like serious, significant trainers. I think you get more value out of them. Do you think the only way to develop nonlinear thinking skill would be to develop through learning the industries, understanding sectors? That no, that just gives you a bunch of information. Nonlinear thinking is sort of a trait that you have, the ability to do it. I know some smart people who cannot think in a nonlinear fashion. I mean, they can recite, the whole book to you. They know the textbook, they know the theory. They're really book smart, but they never really had the ability to think in a nonlinear way. So I think it's something that you either have or you don't. Either you can think in a game theory way. Like, so if you want to avoid linear thinking, which is A, B, C is here and then extrapolate forward, you have to think in a game theory way. You have to think more strategically. Is that, okay, well, if this happens, what are other people going to do? Are they just going to stand around and let it happen? Right? No, not really. They're not just going to say, oh, well, there we go, off we go. And this is just going to keep on rising and rising and everything is just going to be fine. Right? So you have to, if you want to develop the skill, I think learning some of the models of game theory would help a lot. So that when you hear somebody say you need to game it out, that's what it is. It's that you have to think of all the players involved and what is their likely response. And you might find that if you're going this way, these people will act such that, well, it'll actually end up going, being something different than what you think if you thought linearly. If you like gym science, then check out Renaissance. That's not me. You said 5-year market prices are priced. You said 5 years market prices are priced. Oh, okay. Well, when the market today wants to price in everything today, so that you think, well, okay, here's what this company is doing. It's got a fairly good future. Well, how good? How good will it be? Well, it could be, 5 years from now, it could be $100 billion company. Well, let's make it a $100 billion company today. Like, it just seems that the market is so eager to price in all the future today that it's like, well, now you got to wait for the future to unfold because you've priced it all in. So it has to unfold. You've priced it for perfection. It has to unfold that way. And I think the market does a little too much of that today. Government spending cuts. The world should be looking at what Javier Milei is doing in Argentina. Policies work. We'll see a libertarian president in the U.S. in the next decade. I don't know, maybe. Libertarian? Probably not. One of the either the Republican or Democratic Party moving towards a libertarian stance? Yeah, sure. Why do you think most entrepreneurs fail? What an entrepreneur should focus on profit. No. Focus on cash, not profit. Profits can come later. You need to be effective before you're efficient. There's no point in running an efficient ship that's sinking, right? Where everything is clean and in its place and all the masts are tied. There's no point. If your ship is sinking, what's the point? You got to be effective first. The biggest reason entrepreneurs fail is they're not really solving a problem. Right? Most vitamin startups fail. Vitamins meaning I've got a product that's gonna make your life better. So a good example of that is blockchain technology. Here's something that's really cool. Yeah, but what problem does it solve? We'll come up with the problem, but it's really cool. Well, when you come up with a problem, you come back and see me. But right now, it doesn't solve any problem I currently have. And I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs fail in their startups, is because they conceive of this great idea first, and then they go and pursue their idea without first coming up with the statement of what problem am I solving? How many people have this problem? How big is this problem? How much are people willing to pay to have this problem solved? So there's I'd say that's the biggest reason for failure. Do you think cap rate might not be a good investment at this price given Canada's new immigration policy? No, I don't think so, because the policy just lowers the amount of people coming in the country. It doesn't reverse the amount of people coming in. It just lowers the amount of people coming in. But all these apartment REITs are almost near full occupancy to begin with. And you have more people coming in, and you have some level of organic population growth. So no, I don't think it changes anything. Working last week, I was looking at dividend coverage ratios for different companies. The Bloomberg died. However, the Bloomberg died I was using was including some form of net income in the numerator. I don't know what that means. The Bloomberg died. The Bloomberg screen. Some form of net income in the numerator. Well, I don't know what to say to that. Why startups have most absurd. Okay, let's pass on these. This was really messing with the ratio for me. So what like item or how what numerator would be most appropriate for REITs? For REITs, FFO, funds from operations, is the main. When you're forecasting income for REITs, you're looking at net operating income. That's what you're hoping to get to, is the net operating income. And the best measure for these kind of ratios would be funds from operations. So that takes out, the sale of existing assets, things like that. It's just funds from operations. Net income is not a good measure for REITs at all, especially IFRS, because with IFRS you'll have fair value gains and losses that are sent to the income statement. For US GAAP, you won't have them. So even if you have assets that are appreciating in value, they're not going to show up on net income. You also may have very large depreciation expense, because income tax depreciation is different than reporting depreciation. You may end up with very big depreciation expense that makes your net income look very low, but your funds from operations could be very, very high. Your cash flow could be very, very solid. Like a day trader can't work on an institute or a bank. I don't know. Don't think so. It's not that they can't. It's just I don't think that they hire day traders. You mentioned you might take positions tonight if opportunities arise. However, you thought about looking at prediction markets to find opportunities and or hedges. I don't know what any of that means. I don't think I ever said I'm looking at prediction markets for anything. You did not answer, who would you consider pro in trading firms and markets? I don't know who a pro is in a trading firm. I don't know who these day traders are. I don't know any of them. Is it always like you wake up energetic and work every day, even on days when you don't feel like working? I don't think I have days where I don't feel like working. There's always something I feel like doing. I mean, there are times I don't feel like looking at 10Ks anymore. There are times I don't feel like doing screens anymore for a video, where it's like, okay, I've done 15 today. I'm done with this one today. I don't want to read another thing about a certain industry. I'm no longer interested in the market today. It's, I have times where that happens, but I always have something else I can do. So I don't think that I run out of things. And if I do get bored, it's just a period of time. It passes. Still on cash or invest in the market. Still sitting in a lot of cash right now, and I'm looking to get it spent. Why is Serify spending so much in YouTube ads? Pops up every time. Well, I don't know. Serify is more than just markmeldrum.com. They own a bunch of different brands. So are you just seeing Serify MM? Just Mark Meldrum Serify? I don't know. I never spent any money on advertising, so I don't have an answer for what they're doing. I'm not part of the management team with Serify at all. I'm not an employee of Serify. From their perspective, there is no need to consult me on anything. So they don't. I don't know why. And honestly, I don't know why they would consult me on anything. So they do what they do. So trying to figure out why they do what they do, I'm sure in the meeting rooms and the decisions that are made, there are some people who have some reasons of why they're doing what they're doing. They feel no need to share it with me, and I don't feel left out because they don't. I don't know. I know you've probably covered this before. Is there a video that would explain all the contents of the applied series? All you have to do is if you go to the site, click on applied level, you get all the three packages, all the options that are up. At the very bottom, there's a PDF. Click on that. There's like a 12, 13 page PDF that describes exactly what the applied level has. Big overlap between your sectors videos and just the analyst portion of your modeling series. Is there a big overlap between your sector studies videos and just the analyst portion of your modeling series? No, not at all. Not at all. If you're doing the financial modeling for Costco, which is the only company that I've done so far, the analyst part is, I'd say there's a big overlap between that and level one financial statement analysis, because we cover a lot of the things that you would learn in FSA, and in level two, there's a whole chapter on financial modeling that uses, I think, I forget what company it uses as the example, but it has more overlap with that than the sector studies. Passed CFA second attempt, failed level two twice, 37, working as a project manager in a beer company in Czechia. Am I too old to transition in finance? No, you are not. No, you are not. Currently studying for level one, February 25. Is a good idea to watch the applied series while studying? Sure. I'm sure. Or should I focus on finishing level one first? I think you'll get a deeper understanding of some things in the market by using the applied level. I think it probably has the most impact at level two. Of all the levels, probably the most impact at level two. Do you think you'll get a new dog at some point? At some point, but not right now. Thoughts on buying Capreit now at 40? I am. I've been selling puts all the way down. I am. You talked about buying Goodyear back in August. What do you think about it now? Well, I've been very clear on my position on Goodyear. That's in the applied level on my positions video. I talk about it every week, so we'll leave it at that. Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre will make any meaningful difference in Canada if elected. Well, by meaningful difference, I think just getting rid of the kid and his socialist partner, I think is a move in the right direction. So I think it'll make a big difference in the tone of the conversation in Canada, and of just people's, I think, assessment of well, I wouldn't say assessment, but let's just say the tone of the social conversation. I think it'll make a big difference on that one. Trudeau is being extremely divisive for this country, extremely divisive, almost to the point now, and this whole woke thing is gone, right? That bandwagon is left, but he's still clinging to it. It's to the point where he's almost universally hated, even by his own party. They want him to go, and he's very much like Trump on this one. I'm not going anywhere. Brand Trudeau, then brand Liberal, then brand Canada, if there's room. But brand Trudeau, first and foremost, brand Trudeau. He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. He's just like Trump in this respect. He's not going anywhere. I don't want him to go anywhere either. I don't want there to be a swap out like you had in the U.S., right? I don't want Mark Carney coming in because he could probably win. I want Trudeau to stay right where he is. I want him to lose so badly. I want there to be no confusion in his mind about how badly he was thrown out. I don't want him going anywhere. I want him staying right where he is with his ego. Yeah. Assessment of trading the current state of Apple as a low dividend utility stock rather than a growth stock. I don't follow Apple enough to have an opinion on that. Interest in China. I noticed that you had some interest in China. Not really. What is your take on the rivalry between China and the U.S.? Would presidency make any difference, especially in the tech sector? Does China have a tech sector that rivals the U.S.? I don't think the U.S. has to do anything to protect its tech sector, really. I don't know that China has a tech sector that can rival the U.S. because I don't think that China has a venture capital industry that can rival the U.S. And to have a vibrant tech sector, you need a vibrant venture capital industry, which the U.S. has hands down over the rest of the world. So I don't know that anything can really rival the U.S. in the tech sector. So I don't know that I'd be too concerned about that. I think if I were in the leader of the U.S. and I wanted to beat China, I would stay the hell out of the way of the tech sector. I would do everything I can to keep the government as far from Silicon Valley as I possibly can, and let them and just get out of their way and let them do what they do. And I think you'll beat the world if you do that. Where you're going to mess up is when you start poking your fingers in this shit. So I would just stay away from that. How can I learn more about the markets and current events when I can't understand online articles? Any good resources? Well, what don't you understand? Start there. What don't you understand when you read something, right? Whatever you don't understand, stop. Google. Just Google. Go to YouTube and Google it. Somebody will teach it to you. Google it, and you learn little by little by little by little. You go back to the article, you say, okay, I understand this. You read the next line, okay, I don't understand. Google it. Just keep Googling, and you just keep, it's that recursive thing. You Google it, you read something, okay, I don't understand that. Then you Google that. Okay, I don't understand that. Then you Google that. Oh, I get that. I get that. I get that. Okay, I'm back here. It takes time. Learning has been the same as it's been for thousands of years. It's about putting in the time. If you don't put in the time, you're not going to understand it. How do you learn? You put in the time. You got to Google it. You just got to start Googling things. And eventually you'll start building up your understanding. And all of that is not linear. It becomes exponential after a while, because as you start putting things together, you can then start connecting dots without being told that you have to put it together, and up you go. Yeah. What do you think of foreign money? Why do you think foreign money is flowing out of India? I didn't know it was flowing out of India until you said it, so I don't know. Long synthetic TLT until January. These are slapping my face now. Same here. I remember your voice. Don't be greedy. I was greedy and getting the lesson. Yeah. Currently scoring 75% on the 4 CFAI. I have premium content mocks taken so far for the exam. How would you judge these scores? Pretty good. Are you always going to do the sessions at noon? No more late afternoon. I'm going to move it to Wednesday night. I'll move it to Wednesday night. Mark, your mic has a static sound. Does it? Static sound. Hang on. Let me try something here. Every time I go live, there it is. Let me try that. Let me see if that works a little bit better. There we go. Okay, I can see the green thing. I imagine you can hear me. Otherwise, I think you can hear me. Would you call Serify a strategic buyer when they purchase your company? Did you negotiate your own deal or use an investment bank? No, I negotiated with them directly. It's about all I can say on that. Strategic? Well, it's private equity. Private equity is a financial buyer. They'll buy a company and then they buy bolt-ons. The bolt-ons are strategic, sure, but in the end, they're not long-term owners. They're not meant to be long-term owners. They're consolidators. They take an industry, they consolidate, and then they hopefully sell that off. That's the whole point of private equity, right? I threw in the towel on TLT Friday. Okay. Where did I leave off? The thing spins here sometimes, so I already did that. I'm just going to start somewhere at random here. Oh, already did these. Oh man, I'm way down the list here. True out. You may not. I agree with you. Overtime yields have to come down. Yeah. Okay. Are you still bullish on Newmont? Yeah, I think I am. Yeah. Do you think Barrick? Okay. I don't follow Barrick, so I don't know the answer to that. Just 6% on GM. Then what percentage of your portfolio is TLT? Well, TLT is a portfolio. GM is a company. GM is one stock. TLT are bonds. TLT is not a company. So if you say, well, I run a 60-40 portfolio, 60% equities, 40% bonds, you could be 40% of your portfolio in TLT, and that's still true. That's still a 60-40. TLT is nothing more than a portfolio of government bonds. That's all it is. So you can have a large position on TLT. Even if I had 10% in TLT, that's a 90-10 portfolio. Most people would say you're massively underinvested in fixed income. So GM is a specific company. TLT is just a portfolio of bonds, a very different thing here. Where do you see the long-term neutral interest rate to be? I think much lower. Long-term, I think much lower. Would a Trump win be positive for GM? Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would. Which stocks to buy if you want to bet on a Trump win? I think just SPY. I think I wouldn't even try to pick a winner. I think it would be positive for the market as a whole. Yeah. How do you keep track of your investments? Interactive Brokers does all this for me. Can you include the question time with your answers? There's no time in the chat. It doesn't. When I look up and down the chat, it doesn't give me a time. It would help me follow the chat better. Do you have any interest in nuclear energy? Not really. Not at this point, because I haven't looked into it. So I could be interested in it. I didn't think I'd be interested in cybersecurity, and then I started, and as I was going through, I was thinking, okay, hang on, there's a real story here. There's a definite story here, and I'm valuing the companies wrong. I have to use a different valuation metric. So I started using rule of X. When you start using rule of X, it's like, oh, okay, I understand why they're doing that now. This makes a lot more sense now that I understand. Nuclear might make a lot of sense to me if I spent the time looking into it. I've just given it no time. So my opinion of it is, I don't know, because it's true. I don't know. The stock market historically does better under Democrats than under Republicans. And if you remove the outliers, there's no statistical difference between the two. Why do you think anyone winning matters? Well, there is the reality, and then there's the belief in what the reality will be. Right now, there is a belief that Trump will be positive for these things and negative for those, and a belief that Harris will be positive for this and negative for that. So the belief is what will rule the day until the reality comes in saying, no, business as usual. Businesses are doing what businesses do. And in the end, if you're looking for real change in any society, in any economy, it comes from your business leaders, not your political leaders. It always comes from business, right? Business is the culture, not your government officials. So But you can't fight belief initially. There is, markets will price in belief and will price in reality. Belief comes before reality. So it's not a question of why do you believe one will be better than the other. It's I believe that others believe that it will be the case, hence it will be the case. Institute of Trading and Portfolio Management teaches Goldman's approach on building LS options book. Average time frame 1-3 months. Main filter. I don't know what any of that means, other than maybe somebody advertising for something. Would you say your current diet and fitness regime brings you closer to or moving away from becoming the Latin? I don't really think about it that way. I'm not doing it for any philosophical or ideological reasons. I'm just doing it for health reasons. I don't think about it in any way like that. Any chance you may say a few words? I don't know anything about that. How do you think elections would affect gold price? I don't think they'll have any effect on gold price. I think gold has its own story right now, and I think it'll continue on in that direction. I'm gathering funds for the AL course, but as an Egyptian, the cost is equivalent to 3 months' salary. Oof. Could you consider a pricing adjustment? Probably not. Any pricing adjustment I'm considering is to the upside, not to the downside. I'd say there's only about 6 or 7 months before I hit a target for subscribers, non-recurring fee subscribers. And then after that, I'm disaggregating, meaning that there will not be an applied level. It'll all be broken out into basically, I'm just, what do you call that when you do that? You're unbundling. I'm just unbundling everything. And that's the way I can lower the price, is by saying, okay, well, maybe you only want this, and maybe you only want this, and maybe you only want that. But to continually add to the same package all the time, and that package would get more valuable to the point where it'd be unaffordable, that at some point you say, okay, well, I'm going to unbundle, and all of these different modules, you can pick and choose what you want. Now it becomes more affordable because you say, I don't really care for all this other stuff. I really want this, but to get this, I must buy this. Well, I'm going to unbundle. And in unbundling, it will probably be more of a recurring fee, like a 1 year access to this for this fixed content. And as I add new content, then that would be the next year's fee. It would be something along those lines. Sometime in June, I think, would be the end of it, before I move to a different pricing model, just because of the speed at which it's growing, which I'm very happy about, by the way. Did you consider investing in treasury from emerging markets? No. Any views on playing the AI theme? IT service companies like Accenture and Infosys. Well, yeah. You can play the AI theme in so many different ways. I mean, you could ask that question and put in 2 different companies, and it probably would be true to some degree. I think the best way to play the AI theme is still utilities, and I think it's still copper. Is a carry trade available for retail investors? Yeah, I did it in the applied level. We did a carry trade from Japan to the US. Tried to buy T-bills, but for some reason the paper portfolio wouldn't let me, so we bought something else instead. But we did a carry trade. You could do a carry trade. You still think oversold stocks with good fundamentals are potentially better investments than chasing growth? That's what I do, right? I look. This is what I do. I look for these oversold stocks, again, with good fundamentals. What do you think about yield inversion? What do you mean by that? Whenever the yield curve inverts and its 6-month moving average turns positive, this. I don't know that I would. I think we're looking back on history and putting the horse before the cart, and the horse, putting the cart before the horse. The cart being a reduction in interest rates, assuming that the cart will cause the horse to move forward. That's not really how it works. How it's worked in the past is the economy deteriorates and the Fed lowers rates in response to the economy deteriorating. But when we look back in history, we don't know when a recession started. They get dated much later on. And they get dated. And so you may have an economy that's doing well, and then the fundamentals start deteriorating. The Fed lowers rates, but not until some point over here does the NBER say, this is when we entered a recession. This is when we ended, thereby giving the illusion that the Fed was cutting rates before the recession. When they were cutting rates, it's always been the feeling that we're in a recession. But then the dating committee says, no, not really. It didn't start then. It started here, thereby giving the impression that rate cutting happened first, the recession happened next. No, it felt like a recession. The Fed cut rates, but after a period of time, NBER said, it didn't start when you think it started. It started over here. So it's not rate cuts that cause a recession. It's that the economy is deteriorating, rates are being cut, but the pathway to the recession is well on its way already. As long as we have government deficits of this level, I don't think you're going to get a recession. As long as you have, because the deficit is, and deficits everywhere are basically buying almost all the growth in the world. All the growth is happening because of government spending. Now we just have to pay for it. So we're going to have to pay for all of this growth somewhere, which means higher taxes are coming. Higher taxes are coming. Look at the UK for an example of higher taxes are coming. Higher taxes are coming, and more taxes. They're coming. You can't get out of this any other way without massive recession, which means cutting spending, massive austerity. Democracies don't see that happening because you're never going to get reelected. And it's about you. It's not about the country. It's about you and power, and you're not going to give it up. So you're not going to cut spending, which means you're going to raise taxes. You have no choice. You have to get it from everyone else. So this could be the condition that Marx described, that capitalism finally gives way to socialism, and not that the people embrace socialism, is that socialism is foisted upon you by the government to pay for the debt by saying, we all got to pay for this now. Come on, give me your money. Give me all your money. You don't need that much. You don't need that much. You don't need that much. Nobody makes more than 100,000. Everything, it's coming, right? So you got to pay for this somehow. So this could be what Marx predicted is the revolution that leads to socialism. And the revolution is actually coming from your government imposing upon you a quasi-socialist regime through its taxation. You got to pay for this. Either everyone defaults on everyone else, and we wipe the slate clean, which means a lot, the people who pay the taxes are all the bondholders. All the bondholders end up paying the tax, which is all your pension funds, all your bond funds, which you all have in all of your investment portfolios. If you're running a 60-40, 40% of your portfolio is gone. So that's a 40% tax rate on all of you. So if you default, if there's this wave of default to say nobody pays, we're just going to wipe everything off, all the bondholders are the ones who pay the tax. It's the tax on just the bondholders, including all of you. It all has to be paid for. It all has to be paid for. So at some point, you don't get to keep the capital you have. You don't get to keep your success. You don't get to keep it. That's probably the end game unless something changes now. And I mean now. But it won't. It won't. I have no faith in politicians doing what's right for the country. I have no faith. Why? Because democracy is broken. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work. You have dictators. You just have 4-year dictators, right? I mean, it doesn't work anymore. Uh, I really, really wanted to stay out of politics, but I can't. You can't separate the market from the idiocy that happens with the checkbook. I know. I want to know if I should be putting the revenue my business generates into HYSA, MMA, or cash account. I don't know what those things are. Is there any universe in which both S&P 500 and TLT drop together in a downturn? Yeah, is the long end of the curve keeps going up, and the belief is that's just going to crush a whole bunch of businesses. That it, you get one bankruptcy, you get one bank that fails now because of this curve going up. The fear will just spread, even if the Fed steps in now and tries to save it, the fear will spread, and you can get two. Yeah. What do you think of powerful secrets? I think nothing of that. I'm not waving my hands. I'm just not going to answer that one. Where'd I leave off? If the inflation is decreasing almost everywhere, why is gold still high? Gold is high because of demand, period. It's high because of demand. So there is a demand for it. We have to ask, well, what's driving the demand? You have drops in yields. The amount of gold per ton that gold mines are pulling up gets lower every year. The yield is dropping. So if you want to increase production, the price has to be higher because it's not worth getting some of the gold. There's lots of gold, but at a price. Number two is there is a concern about holding US dollars, especially outside of the country that you're holding it in, and even holding it within the country you're holding in. What if the US doesn't like you? Are they just going to cancel the debt they owe you? Are going to cancel are they going to repossess it, seize it? But gold, once I have gold in my vault, you can't touch that gold in my vault, right? So that's why gold is doing what it's doing. Will you watch U.S. elections, stream them? Yeah, I'm going to be doing a live stream starting at, I guess I could start at 8. 23-year-old Brazilian currently studying CFA. Any advice on how I can work abroad? Not really, no. I'm not an immigration specialist at all. If you didn't become a finance professor, if you didn't start what would you have done? Something. Something. I would have done something. I don't know what, but I would have done something else. Would you be a lawyer, an engineer, a doctor? I don't know. Trudeau loses. We're stuck with PP, Walmart, Trump. Well, okay, so I know who you like. What's your view on how did develop after you've sold? I've been a loyal user and noted that almost nothing has been added or changed. This I can't answer, as you can understand. I mean, I can't really share any beliefs or any ideas. If I had negative ideas, I couldn't share them, right? I can't. This is it's kind of like Powell being asked, "What do you think of Congress?" He doesn't comment on it. I don't comment on any decisions that they make in terms of the direction that they're going in, because I don't have a picture of the whole. is one brand of a whole bunch that they own, that they may be making decisions that are in the best interest of the whole, that may not look like it's in the best interest of this or that. I don't know. Overall, I don't have much of an opinion on anything. And I don't mean it in the sense of saying, I don't have much of an opinion. I just don't have an opinion on it. I've sort of let a lot of the weight of being strategic in the business go. And I don't, it doesn't weigh on me every day. I don't think about it every day. But I mean, as far as nothing added or changed, I know I change at level 3. I still do that. I know I've changed whenever there's new content. I know I change it. I'm sure that's the case for level 1 and 2. As far as being added, office hours have been added. Live classes have been added at level 1. Never used to have that before. Now there's live classes. So maybe it's just you're not at level 1 anymore. While reading nonfiction books, do you take most notes, specific points that you find insightful? I don't really read a lot of nonfiction books. The nonfiction I read are mostly 10Ks. And yeah, I do take notes. Timing the live stream is much better. What do you think about news of Warren Buffett offloading more shares of Apple? Yeah, it's, where can it go? Where, like, at this point, how much growth is left in Apple? It's so big, it's so massive right now that usually big size like that begins to work against you because you start attracting a lot of attention you don't want. But where can it go? Another iPhone? At the last one I bought was $2,000 all in. How many times do you want me to buy a $2,000 iPhone? Like, at some point, please let me be good for 4 years. But every 2 years, it's just, you get tired of it. It's exhausting because you never get the value out of it. So when you look at it as a whole, you think, okay, well, how much more growth is there when almost everybody on the planet has a smartphone and everyone's sort of lined up in their camp? It's kind of like telecoms. Growth comes from stealing business from other people, from other competitors at this point. Yeah, I can see, it's had a good run. It's where it is. It's massive. It's huge. Market cap of what, 2 point something trillion. Where can it go at this point? Are cybersecurity stocks like Palo Alto not already priced to perfection? Nope. You have to value them the right way. Have you read books on history, philosophy? Yep. You are interested in these. What books would you recommend young ones must read, and on what fields? I would say history is probably something that is underread. Learn from history, but understanding that things happened in a place and a time. That you cannot judge events from 300 years ago by today's standards, much like 300 years from now, if somebody in the other world calls you to task, you would then say, you can't judge me by these standards. I did right by my standards, right? Read history, understand history. I would say go into history a lot more, especially the history of people. Read biographies. You can learn a lot from that. I hear you say you threw in the towel on TNT. I didn't throw in the towel. I was reading somebody's comments that said I threw in the towel. Yeah, never mind. Okay, you got that. 3 weeks ago, you explained an idea of the Fed probably target 3% inflation. Can you explain the trickle-down effect on pension funds having to have expected returns in the long run? If they target 3%, it will probably feed into expectations. And if it feeds into expectations, companies will start targeting 3% as well. And you will get the 3% inflation because that's what will be targeted, which means revenue should increase at least the 3% inflation rate. So the nominal value of equities would increase at the same rate, right? At a minimum, including whatever they can generate themselves, but it would become a baseline from which they would increase by. Just put the question you're reading on the screen. Can't. It's the camera looks at me. I don't have software that casts my screen out to YouTube. There's a camera that looks at me, and that's it. To put it up on YouTube, I would have to put it onto my iPad and say, I'm reading this question. Oh, look what I've done. I've created an endless mirror. I would say, I'm reading this question now, which would really just be a big pain in the ass to do. So, will there be a day when long rates spike because no one shows up for an auction? No. The participants must show up. They must bid. Is there a chance you compile a list of common questions that one have to answer when reading the 10Ks? I guess I can do that. I don't know that it would be helpful other than in a very generic sense, like a checklist. Checklists I find are so bloody boring. But if you've gone through the financial modeling course, the I think we're in week 9 right now. If you go through the Costco one, as you're reading a 10K, start asking yourself, how would I model this? How would I model that? Right? What do you got to do? You need a revenue schedule. You need a cost schedule. You need a fixed asset schedule. You need a debt schedule. So all of the schedule, you would then start paying attention to line items about that, because you'd be thinking, well, okay, what do I need to know about this? What do I need to know about revenue recognition? Do they have a lot of unearned revenue? Do they, like with Costco, with membership revenue, they recognize it, they amortize it every single month. So they have an amount, a liability for unearned revenue, but it's not really a liability, is it? However, they get paid up front for all that stuff. So you would, that it helps you if you have to model it and you're thinking about modeling it, it helps in what you pay attention to when you read it. Oh, Broad, did you get a chance to look at the Board of Changemakers discussion by Okay, no. Ideas around building a safe portfolio. Well, what's your definition of a safe portfolio? And when you say ideas around building a safe portfolio, my idea would be, sure, that's one interpretation of your question. Another interpretation is, what ideas do you have in order to build a safe portfolio? In which case, I have to say, safe for who? Safe for you? Safe for me? Like, who's it safe for? And safe in what sense? Safe in the sense of zero capital loss ever? Like, so we would have to have a big, long discussion about, well, what do you mean by safe? So I have no ideas around that. How do you develop the formulas and calculations and the schedules for the modeling video? How do you develop the formulas and calculations? This is what you learn in CFA. All I'm doing is taking what we've learned in the CFA curriculum and applying it. And if you've taken any finance courses, this is just stuff that we're applying. If you've taken any accounting courses, it's the interpretation of the statements, a little bit of the understanding of the transactions behind them in order to apply them. But most of the calculations, I don't think we do anything more than add and subtract, divide and multiply. It's arithmetic, right? But it's just, okay, well, I'll add this number to this number. A lot of it is just logic. What's your comment on agency's recent drop? Already commented on that. What are your thoughts on ASML holdings? Do they have any serious competition? Not at this point in time. ASML still seems to have a quasi-monopoly in that space. Where do we leave off here? It just keeps jumping around a lot. Oh, look at this. I'm almost near the bottom on this. Where did I leave off here? Yeah, there we go. Fingers crossed you're live at least another 100. You live at least another 100 years. I hope not. My God. I can already feel in the changes in my body. Like, my knee is not what it used to be. Another 100 years. Oh God, I don't think that I want to live in a body that's that old. unless boom, snap my finger and I never age again. That would be great. Freeze my aging right here. Sure. Do you have any continuation plan for the applied level in case of an unfortunate event? At this point, no. There is just me at this point. I guess I should think about adding other voices, but at this point, something I'd have to be in an accident or get shot, and I have no plans on visiting the US, so I don't think I'll get shot for a while. So I'd have to be in an accident, but I have no plans of driving in a Tesla, so I don't know if I'll be in an accident for a while. As long as I stay out of a Tesla in the US, I won't have an accident and get shot. Let's just generalize broadly, right? The unbundling will affect the early buyers of the applied level? Nope, not at all. I remember a video you explaining US debt is not a big deal way back when interest rates were really low, and before you had another $5 trillion added to the deficit. Like, that was way back. It was no big deal. It's no big deal then, but now it's a big deal. And the longer we keep rates high, as you're rolling over debt, the longer you keep rates high, all that debt has to roll over at these newer, higher rates. It becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger deal as we move forward. Do you think we should incentivize natural growth? Should incentivize natural growth, or immigrants are sufficient to keep population growth in Canada? There's nothing wrong with immigration. I don't know about natural growth. I mean, incentivize it. I don't know what more we can do to incentivize it. What do you think our potential implications to the immigration measures that were recently released and projecting population decline 0.2 in the next 2 years? I didn't see any projection for population decline. Maybe I'm just not looking at the same thing, but we had massive population growth. At some point, you need to digest that, right? So let us digest that first. Raise taxes on hedge funds, family offices, investment in private equity market makers. Put Ken Griffin from Citadel in jail. Yeah, always. Yeah, go after success. That always has a nice ending. That's just going after. Like, why family offices? What have they done? I don't understand this. Well, why hedge funds? What have they done? Right? You know, what have they done that any other business hasn't done on a different, just on a different scale in a different space? I don't understand why, raise taxes on criminals. Let's say that you get charged for murder and you go to jail. The state should get to confiscate every single freaking asset you have. Every single freaking asset you have. Why not? Why not go after them? Why go after good people who are doing good things, who are good family members, who are good parents, good husbands, good children? Well, why go after? Why just name a group? Hedge funds. Let's go after hedge funds. Why? What have they done to you? Why not go after the people who are in prison and say, listen, it's costing society to put you there, and you broke society's rules. You lose all your assets. We're not paying for you. You're going to pay for yourself. We confiscate all your assets. All of them. I don't care if you're a billionaire. We confiscate all your assets if you're in jail. Period. Go after them. Why not tax the bad people? Why take a group of people and say, well, they're successful, hence they're bad. Let's tax them. Why are they bad people? I bet you'd want to work for them. I bet you want to be them. But because you can't work for them and because you can't be them, you don't want them to be them. This is the motivation of a lot of tax the rich. You want to be rich. You all want to be rich. But some of you have decided that, well, I'll never be rich. And since I'm never going to be rich, I don't want anybody to be rich. That's how I'm going to feel better about myself, by taking these people down a peg or two. And you call them names. Why? You've never even met them. You've never even met them. They could be wonderful people, right? What do you want in a society? Do you want to be absolutely equal with everyone else? In other words, you have no opportunity to be unequal. No opportunity. If you run too fast, we make it illegal for you to run too fast. You must run at the same pace as everyone else. So everyone must run at the same pace as the slowest person. Otherwise, it's illegal. What if we had a society where you had no chance to be unequal? How terrible would that be? I'm absolutely certain that every one of you out there wants to be unequal. You want to be most unequal. You want to be richer than the person beside you. You want to have money. You want to be successful. You want to be famous. You all want these things. Why do we walk around pretending that it's evil and bad to want these things? Oh, you can't say you want these things. I want to be equal. We got to take care of the least affected. We got to. Why? Why do we hate people who have more than us? Well, do you not want to be that yourself? I know I do. I've always known that since I was young is I don't want to be equal. I want to be most unequal if I can. I have the ability to be unequal. I was in grade school. I was always at the top of my class, never number one, but always in the top three, sometimes number one, number two, number three, but always in the top. And I was proud of that. I wanted to be unequal. I wanted to be unequal. I didn't want to be equal. Why? What's the big deal with family? What have they done? Like you're just engaging in class warfare. You're bringing in divisive language. I mean, if you don't want, if you are so against those people, what are you even listening to a finance person for? I'm sure it's because you want to be successful. I'm sure you'd love to be one of these people. You'd love to have your own hedge fund and be a billionaire. But look at your opinion of them. I think you got it backwards. What you don't want to be is homeless on the street. What you don't want to be is a drug addict. What you don't want to be is in prison, right? Let's have less of that stuff, but let's have more of these people. Let's make them the role models in society. Let's have more of those people and less of the other things. That's just my opinion. I didn't see a bunch of hearts flowing up, so I don't think anyone really is on my side on this one, but that's okay. I don't think you should tax success. I think you should celebrate success. I think you should hold them up as examples of what you can be, and be honest with yourself. Look in the mirror and say, you know what? Truth be told, I want to be that. I want to be rich. Say it. It's okay to say it. I want to be filthy rich. I want to be rich, period. I want to be rich. I want to be famous. Say it to yourself because it's true. And then say, okay, I'm going to do it and I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm not going to let anybody tear me down because of this at all. I want to be, I'm trying to find the right word for this now in a very Nietzschean sense. I want to be the Ubermensch, right? I want to be that. I don't want to be the crowd. I don't want to be one of these people. Rise above it all. Don't hate these people. Protect these people. Celebrate these people. The hedge funds, the pioneers, the billionaires, the winners, the ones who stand above, the ones who stand out, the unequal ones, the star quarterbacks, the winners in all their fields. I want to be that. That's my role model. You don't put a picture up in your gym of a homeless person saying, aha. You put a picture up in your gym of somebody in pristine condition because you want to be that. That's what I'm working towards. That's what I want, right? Say it. It's okay to embrace that and embrace that winning attitude of find me the winners and I want to be that, right? That was a little much. But I just don't understand why we're picking on investment banks, private equity, family offices, hedge funds. You don't even know these people. Give me a name. You know, find me a murderer, somebody who's killed 2-3 people in jail and still has a house in their name. Tax the shit out of them. Take everything from them. You get no argument from anybody else because they're the worst of society. Don't you want to punish the worst of society, not the best? All right, let's move on. Tesla puts are bleeding. What do you take? What would it take for you to be long Tesla? Nothing. It's the valuation. It's not the guy. It's the valuation. If Tesla's at that value, how do you explain GM at its value when GM already has a robotaxi? When GM's growth rate in its EVs is greater than what Tesla's growth rate when Tesla started. When GM reached sales in particular vehicles, in high-end Hummer vehicles, faster than when Tesla achieved sales of its Roadster vehicle. When the cost per kilowatt hour that GM is forecasting is lower than what Tesla is forecasting. If you love Tesla, you must absolutely love GM. You must. So I'll pick GM over Tesla. Original views have not changed with regards to TLT. Nope. You are not concerned about the shorter term noise. Nope. Why not just ignore the short term noises? Well, that's what I do. But listen, you got to do what's right for you. In the end, you must do what's right for you. What's right for me is to stay put. I am betting that my intuition and my experience are on the side of being right, and that the market is just simply caught up in a narrative that's going to show itself to be wrong. Because I think this, I sold all my US government bonds. Now what? Now where do I put money? Now what do I do? Where do I go now? You know, if you need to be in bonds, I'll put my money in China. Should I put it in Europe? Well, now that I've done the analysis, I really should put them. Look at the yields I'm getting in U.S. Treasuries. I may as well put them right where I took the money out of. I come all the way back to where I exited, right? If I wasn't in the long-term bonds, I would be looking at those yields saying, I got to get into long-term bonds. So I'm doing what's right for me. You always have to do what's right for you, right? Don't copy me because I'm doing something. What you can do is say, well, does it make sense for me to do? And if it makes no sense for you to do, if it's not something you want to do, if you're not comfortable with it, then you must decide that, it's something you don't want to do. But I haven't changed my views. Sitting on cash for way too long, paralyzed by fears of recession. Yeah, well, you and me both. I've been doing the same thing. Get on the market now, especially with the rates being cut. Where to start? Let me know when you get in, because usually when the last bear has given up, it's time for a sell-off. So I don't want to be the last bear. I'll let you be the last bear. You send me an email saying, I'm all in now. I'll short the market. No, I'm partly kidding there, but usually it's when the last bear has given up. It's like, well, who's left? Who's left to buy, right? What do you think could be the cause of widening distribution of CPI contributors? What do you think could be the cause of widening distribution of CPI contributors today compared to past? CPI contributors. You mean elements of the basket contributing to CPI, contributing to inflation? If you mean that, well, I think a big part of that is the aging of the U.S. economy and the size of the baby boomer cohort, and that they are in distribution mode and spending, and they tend to spend more on services than goods, combined with the aftermath of a pandemic that probably scared a lot of people out of pursuing careers in the healthcare sector, right? Get rid of dark pools and off exchange. But why? This idea of get rid of stuff. You give me a reason why you want to get rid of certain groups of people and certain things. Give me your logical reason why. There is probably a reason why these things exist. One of the big reasons is this. Let me give you a good reason. Let's say that you're a large shareholder. You have 100,000 shares. You cannot possibly print 100,000 shares if you want to sell them. You can't. You cannot print 100,000 shares. You will be gamed in a second. The moment the market sees you trying to sell 100,000, that price is dropping fast. Everyone's going to get in front of you. So you can't. And you have investors that you have to protect their money from, and you think, if there's only some way that I can move this, is there any other way that I can maybe find a buyer that could buy a whole block all at one time, and we could do it off exchange for no other reason than my sale will move the price, for no other reason than it's my sale, not for any fundamental reason, which doesn't really seem fair to everybody else. So can I do it off exchange? And you find a way, somebody, when this problem first had a solution, somebody said, well, what if we had an off exchange platform specifically for that so that nobody gets hurt? Well, now you want to get rid of it. I don't know why, but give me reasons why you want to get rid of things, but to say, oh, we should kill them all. Why? Right? Most retail orders don't go to the lit exchanges. They get internalized in Ken Griffin's dark pools. Nothing is good or bad. Nothing is good or bad. Is a nuclear weapon good or bad? Depends on how it's used. It can be good. It can be bad. Nuclear can be good. Nuclear can be bad. Dark pools can be good. Dark pools can be bad. A gun could be good. A gun could be bad. A knife could be good. A knife could be bad. A car could be good. A car can be bad. But I guarantee you, no matter what you create, some people will use it for good. Some people will use it for bad. Now, if you think that Ken Griffin is doing something, that Citadel is taking Robinhood data flow and betting against the Robinhood traders, then you could say, well, okay, well, that's evil. That's the bad thing. But not if you're an investor in Ken Griffin's fund. Then it's a good thing because he's taking advantage of an opportunity that is there. Robinhood offers free trading. Well, use your brain. If something is free, you're the product. You're the product. It's got everything that's free has got to be paid for somewhere. Everything that's free has got to be paid for somewhere. So if you're trading for free, expect that somewhere along the way, you're the product. I want you to think deeply about why you want to get rid of things. Because when you get rid of things, you're also getting rid of all the good things that go with it as well. And then when you get rid of people, you're also getting rid of all the good things people do. Even if you don't agree with some of the things they do and you think they're evil, you're also getting rid of all the good things that they do. Anyways, we'll leave those comments behind. Two big events. I think straddle or strangle. Yeah, well, again, straddle or strangle. Which one, right? I mean, I guarantee with the implied volatility percentile, the straddle's going to be expensive. And then again, it's, my thinking is you don't want this to be a casino. And when it becomes a casino, you should step aside. And I think for the next couple of days, any big bets are just, you may as well go to the casino. If you're in the US and you go to the casino, at least you get to drink for free, right? Market's not going to give you free drinks. Will you address the medium and long-term decisions trees on the AL? Yes, I will. Well, I will draw. Once you start going too far out, you start going into the realm of lower and lower probabilities per each event. So it's enough to think about your decision tree, and then a couple of outcomes on either one, and then stop there. Because once you start breaking them down even further, the probabilities of any one of them are too low. And subjective probabilities are just that, subjective probabilities. There's no point in getting super mathematical about your subjective probabilities. $7,000 for all-in summit tickets, worth it. Well, they are monetizing their name, aren't they? $7,000 for tickets. I don't know. These are things I don't do and I don't go to. And I mean, I'd never spend $7,000 for it. But if it is a group of people in a particular industry and there's a heavy concentration of people from a particular industry, maybe it's worth it for you to go and be there and network and meet people. One connection could be worth $700,000. So 7,000 might be worth it, right? To be in the right room with the right group of people, maybe. Best piece of advice you received for investing? Best piece of advice I received for investing. Uh, I don't know if I've received, like, I mean, I could say, here's a good piece of advice. I don't know if I've received it or come to it on my own. But I would say that the best advice that I would have is um, to sit on your hands a lot. Like once you take a position, sit on your hands a lot. Don't think you got to trade every day. Oh, the price is going down. I got to do something. Oh, the price is going up. I should take my profits. Um, the quote that I'm reminded of is like your portfolio is like a bar of soap. The more you touch it, the smaller it gets. That a lot of times you should just sit on your hands. There's desire to do something. Some days you're looking at what your positions are and you say, "Oh, there's nothing to do." Okay, there's nothing to do. Go away, enjoy your life. You don't have to. You don't have to be tied to it. Uh, Try to do as little as you possibly can. I think once you stop with the trading every single day or trying to find something to do and letting positions just carry them for months at a time, I think you'll find that your performance starts to get better. Do you think agency will ever touch their dividend? I don't see it in trouble right now. You have to look at their net income, net interest income, and dollar roll income, and it more than covers the dividend. So I think they're fine. Who is your mentor in finance? Or you just learned it yourself? I just learned it myself. What do you think about GameStop? Incident where the Reddit guy just pumped the stock and people to take down the rich. That's the world. I mean, do you want to live in a world where you have no potential to do that? Or do you want to live in a world where you do have the potential to do that? I want to live in a world where I got the potential to do whatever I can conceive of. So what do I think of it? Good on him. Good on him. I don't hate him for it. Costco stock also trades on the Canadian exchange. Other than trading at lower volumes, possibly lack of options compared to the ones listed in U.S. exchange, what other concerns should I have? It'll trade on a U.S. dollar basis. So let's say that the price doesn't change all day, but the currency changes. What's listed on the TSX will change in price because of the currency. So you're not avoiding currency risk. It's right there in the price of the stock because you're seeing the Canadian price of the U.S. Costco stock. U.S. 10-year yields have spiked due to deficit worries. Is it feasible for the Fed to cut rates while yields keep rising? At some point, they'll have to do something about that. But what it gives them permission to do is cut rates without affecting inflation on anything tied to the 10-year or the 5-year or the 30-year. When looking at new stocks industries, how do you know if a market overreacted to an event? You don't. You just have your experience and usually some industry averages to tie it to. See, there you go. I want to be rich. Say it. Yeah. Wanting is the motivation for doing great things. Exactly. Are you saying that the only way U.S. can address its sovereign debt issue is to print money, which will lead to massive inflation? Do you agree? I think there's one option is to allow inflation, but manage your spending. In other words, don't increase your spending, but allow inflation to increase. Because if inflation increases, nominal GDP increases. So if your tax is 17% on average of nominal GDP, and real GDP is flat, but nominal GDP is up because you've allowed inflation to go up, you get 17% of that, but your debt doesn't inflate. That's what is referred to as inflating away the debt, is you allow inflation to raise tax revenues to pay down debt that does not inflate. So you're paying back debt with cheaper and cheaper dollars all the time. You don't have to you don't have to print money to pay the debt. You just have to encourage inflation. So get rates all the way to zero and push that yield curve all the way down. One way out of this A tax on everybody. A tax on everybody is to allow inflation at 6 or 7% and leave it there for a number of years while managing your deficit. Like balance your budget, get that up to 6 or 7%. Your tax revenues will increase without tax rates increasing because inflation is a tax rate. You basically added a 6% sales tax on to everybody. And then your debt won't increase at the rate of inflation. It stays the same. So as your tax revenues increase with inflation, you pay down that debt. They had the opportunity with the high inflation rates after the pandemic to inflate away part of that debt. And what did they do? They increased debt faster than the rate of inflation, thereby missing a perfect opportunity to use inflation as a weapon, as opposed to being beaten up by it. I would expect a rich person to say that. Give me a freaking break. So if you interviewed an athlete at the top of its game and the athlete said, "Oh, you should hate people like us. I mean, look at these guys, 500 par, 600 par. We're terrible people. I mean, you should emulate that guy over there who doesn't have enough money to buy clubs." Do you think that anybody at the top of their game is going to advise you to be at the bottom of your game? Yeah, I'm at the top of my game, but it wasn't as if I have all this and now I'm saying this. It's because I've done a lot of things to be unequal. And guess what? I'm unequal now, right? Who would you rather listen to? Somebody who's not unequal or somebody who is unequal in the direction that you want to be unequal? Of course, I'm saying this because I've done it and it works. And let me tell you something, it feels damn good to be unequal. God, it feels good to be unequal. I can't even tell you how it feels. Until you're unequal, until you're really unequal, you don't know what that feeling is like. It feels good. Don't you want to feel that way? Don't you want to take advice from somebody who is successful in the field that they're in? I think you would, but this hate, this looking for oh, you don't want to listen to them. Why would you ever go to university then? Oh, the professor would say that he's got a PhD. You know, of course, my physics professor believes in Newton's law. He's got a PhD. Why? You would never say that. You go to university, you sit in front of professors who have very deep knowledge in what they're teaching you. But somehow when we get to the real world and we're looking at successful people when it comes to money, somehow we just want to throw them out and call them names. Why just that? Why just rich people? Why do we want to throw out rich people who've made their money in the field of finance? Why do we just want to throw them out? But we're okay with rock stars being rich. We're okay with movie stars being rich. No one's saying, oh, throw Taylor Swift in jail and tax her to shit. Get rid of Taylor Swift. No one's saying that. Why not? She's rich. But somehow, some unknown hedge fund guy, throw him in jail. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. Don't like him. Why? Taylor Swift has more money. Why not get rid of Taylor Swift? Why not do that? Right? Come on, man. I mean, I think maybe some people now are just poking me just to get me going. Where are we? Okay, here we go. What do you think of the knowledge paradox? It states that we need concepts to acquire knowledge about the real world, but each concept is a step away from reality. So to engage in sort of these ontological debates can be really interesting, and I think you can have really great deep conversations about it, and they are interesting. I think the question then becomes, how useful are they, though? So if I say that the concepts that we hold in our brain are really one step away from reality, or that it's not a reflection of reality, we can never really know reality. How useful is that when we've been to the moon, we have vehicles that drive, we have cell phones, we have internet, we have technology? Obviously we must be in touch with the real world somehow. Obviously, we must be in touch with reality somehow, because science seems to be working out pretty damn good, right? I mean, the world I live in today versus when I was 15 years old, if I had a glimpse of this, it would seem like magic. It would seem like magic. You can walk around with this little small thing and you could You can be in communication with the whole world all at one time? No, come on. It would seem like magic, right? So I think other than being a great uh, seminar topic in a philosophy of knowledge class, to exercise your ability to use logical argument. I don't know that it's useful, very useful in the real world. There is a reality that is widely shared. I think that from an objective point of view, if I see somebody with a problem and I see somebody else with a problem, and you say you have the problem, I recognize the problem, and we can all clearly see we have the problem. Is it important that we get the actual objective reality of the problem down before we solve it? Right? They're fun arguments to have. They're fun debates to have. Right? What about successful people who become successful by breaking the law? Or successful people who are also drug addicts? Is that the norm? I mean, you're going out into the tails of the distribution and pulling something out of the tail and saying, aha, the whole distribution has to go. Look what I found in the tail. There is an extremely high correlation between educational achievement and wealth. Are all educated people wealthy? No. Are all wealthy people educated? No. But those are the tails of the distribution. Whenever we talk about anything probabilistic, you talk about the middle of the distribution. There's always a distribution, but it's the middle of the distribution that we look at. And usually the first standard deviation, there's roughly about 70% of the observation, 68.3, but let's call it 70%. For anything you can say in a social system, for any middle of any distribution, there are tails. There are examples way over here and way over here. So if you go out and you take a 95% interval, what do you have? You have 2.5% over here and 2.5% over here, right? You can always find an example in these tails. The danger is bringing them into the middle and trying to hold them up as representative of the center of the distribution. That's something John Oliver does, right? Don't be a John Oliver here. Don't go into the tails and bring them and say, let's take this for example. What about this? Yeah, they exist. But those are the tails of the distribution. You can't have a rule about the distribution based on your observation of the tails, right? You have to govern society by the center of the distribution, understanding that there are going to be observations in the tail. So successful people who break the law. Do you think that's the majority of successful people are the ones who break the law? Do you think the majority of the real successful ones are drug lords? I mean, I think Costa Rica has 2, and they're trying to kill each other, right? Of a population of 5.5 million, there are two drug lords, right? I mean, yes, there are criminal people in the world. They will always be with us. Some of them, if you take all the criminals in the world and you do a distribution of all the criminals in the world, most of them are poor. There are some in the tail, but if you go out in the right tail, you'll find some really successful criminals. However, the right tail of the criminal distribution is the left tail of the normal distribution, where yes, you'll find some rich people that are drug dealers, but the vast majority, the center of that distribution, they're rich for reasons of working within the system and being successful in a system that allows them to be unequal. That's competition. It brings out the best in you, or for some people, who don't want to compete. Yeah, it's not a very good system for them. But you don't change the whole system of competition because you got a left tail that, oh, I don't want to compete. We should tear down the right tail. We should get rid of all of this. We should tax these people to hell. Right? So, yeah, they exist. They exist. Nothing you can do about that. That is a distribution. That is a normal distribution. when it comes to cognitive ability, for example, you have the middle of the distribution. You have some people way in the right tail who are absolutely brilliant, but sometimes mad because they're so brilliant. They're somewhat crazy. And then you have people way on the other end who, my God, like, you can't let them hold a knife, right? That's in every distribution that's out there, the right and the left tail. Don't judge the center of the distribution by what you see in the tails of the distribution. I remember when I was first year PhD, you have seminars, and you're reading papers and what do you think of this and what do you think of that? And they always devolved into, well, I can think of an example of this and I can say, but look at the methodology. This methodology is based on positivism, which is based on a distribution of outcomes. We can always think of things in the tail. The questions we should be asking is, is the data representative of what we're trying to measure? Do we accept that positivism is a route to knowing knowledge about this thing? But there's no determinism. There's nothing deterministic in society. There's nothing deterministic about any of this stuff. It's all probabilistic. And because it's probabilistic, you go for the big probabilities, not the small ones. You're pointing out things that have very small probabilities. Empirically, we see them, but very small probabilities, right? Is there any voting restrictions on shares held by ETF providers? No. No, a share has a vote, regardless of who holds it. A share has a vote. The more we learn, the more we realize how little we actually know. Well, that is true. That is wisdom right there. That is wisdom. So if we think about the experiments that be done on this in economics, is you're asked to make a decision about something, and you're asked to also state your level of conviction about your decision. And you have different groups where one group is given a little bit of information, another group is given more, and then of course you have experts. And it's found that those with the highest conviction are usually the experts and the ones who have very little information. That the ones who have more information but not a complete picture are the most uncertain. So that you go from being really certain with no information, you start learning, your uncertainty increases until you start to become an expert. Then your conviction in your beliefs start to increase again. So that somebody who's really has a real strong conviction, no, this is the way it is either an expert or an idiot. But somebody who says, I don't really know. Well, they're well on their way to becoming an expert. They're more than the idiot, but they're not quite the expert. So economics does say that is a true statement. The more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know. The more you realize how little you know. That is actually proven by a lot of experiments in economics. Where are we here? 247. So I'm almost at the bottom anyway. So let's just scroll down. I think there's only about 10 questions. I'll start at the bottom. Note taking for CFA mostly feels like a waste of time. I think practicing more questions would be a better use of time. You know what also is a really good use of time? Instead of taking notes, you read a paragraph, and instead of saying, oh, let me write that down, you stop and you say, no, let me repeat it to an invisible person on the other side of me. Let me teach it to some invisible other person. Don't make a note, repeat it. So you read it and go, okay. The other person is asking, what did it say? And you say, well, it said this and this and this and this. And if you can teach it to the other person as you're saying it to yourself, you ingrain it in your head better than if you're taking notes. Because when you're taking notes, you have this idea in your mind that you're going to come back to these notes. So it's not going into long-term memory. You're not ingraining it into your neural pathways, right? But when you start talking and you have to start explaining it and teaching it to someone else, then it starts to ingrain a lot better than taking notes. Do you believe in destiny? That it's all written somewhere? No. The future, the future is not unknown. The future is unknowable. That's an ontological statement. To say the future is unknown is to say that there is something in the future, we just don't know it yet. But to say it's unknowable means there is no future yet until I create it. My action right now can go this way or this way. I can create the future for me. I don't have to say it's preordained. I can create the future for me by changing my decision right now. And you do have the power to change your own decisions. You have the power right now to decide whether it's in you to be a better person tomorrow than you were today or to be the same person. You create your own future. So if you say, if I see that you're a person constantly learning, I will say there is a certain destiny in that. And all the destiny means is that I'm linearly extrapolating out where you could go if you continue doing what you're doing. But nothing is written anywhere. Now that's a belief system, much like any other belief system. I'm positing that there is no ontological reality to the next second until it happens. That it is not something that is unknown but can be known. It is something that is unknowable, period, until you actually create it yourself. So, that, by the way, is not just nuance. That gives you so much power. Once you move away from it's preordained, it's destined, I have no choice, I would have ended up here no matter what. It sort of robs from you all the power you have to create whatever future you want yourself. You don't have to take a path that you're on and say it's preordained. It gives you a whole bunch more power. And it's, other than it, I don't want you to think about it, well, it's a nuance in description. No, it's a change of control. Rather than having a locus of control that's external to you, saying there's a preordained future, there's fate, the power over my life is already determined, to an internal locus of control of saying there is no future unless I create it and participate in it myself. It seems objectively harder to get ahead in Canada looking at gross income to home price is like double 20 years ago. How does someone counter this with reality while not having a victim mentality? I get it. I mean, I can't say that I'm not going to be one of those people. Oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Come on, I did it. Anybody could do it. No, I see it myself. I look at home prices. I look at average incomes, and I always ask the question: who are these people buying houses today? How are they doing it? Because I know that when I had a certain income, when I started out in my 20s, and I wanted to buy a house, it wasn't that easy. And I look at house prices today and average incomes, and I think, who are these people buying houses? How is it even possible? You go to Costco and you look at the price of things and say, who's buying this? Other than people like me, who's buying this? I mean, how are they affording this? I know what things cost. You look at the vehicles in the parking lot, you think, I know what insurance quotes are on these. I know what the prices are. Is everyone financially successful? I'm just average again? Damn it. So no, I know exactly what you mean. It would be hard every day to look at the society that you're in and the economics of things and say, I'll never win. I'll never have this. I'll never have that. I get that. I would just simply say that being a victim makes it, or adopting a victim mentality just makes it almost certain that it's that much further away, that it is, you have constructed a mental wall between you and that. So if you look around and you see people doing it, you say, it must be possible. I must find a way. How do I get this done? I don't know. I don't know that I've ever really adopted a victim mentality where I thought things are happening to me. Look at me. I need things given to me. I don't think I ever have. But I'm a lot harsher with myself than most people are willing to be. When something doesn't work out, I immediately blame myself. Stupid, stupid. You think you're smart, but you're not. You're stupid. I mean, I immediately blame myself, and I call myself all sorts of names. I have no problem calling myself stupid. I don't. I don't start thinking of, oh, the world's against me and this and the market's rigged. And, I mean, I lose. Stupid, stupid, stupid. So I guess it's just a matter of a different mindset. Have you ever read Nassim Taleb's books? Yeah, I have. Fooled by Randomness or Black Swan. Read them both. What do you think? I think his message is good in bringing it to a mass market, but I don't think that any PhD anywhere reading this who has been trained in research methodology would say that he's saying anything new. It's that the untrained mind can be fooled by randomness. The idea of the black swan was that you have these events, these 1 in 100 year events that keep happening every 8 years. The distribution, the normal distribution must be wrong in this case. But the normal distribution is not meant for transitions. The normal distribution for returns is a great description of returns when nothing's going on. When the system is not being bombarded by mutations, the normal distribution is a good description of how we should think about that particular world. So I used some terminology there that may not make sense. Bombarded by mutations. There is in economics a field of research about stability of systems, so that you have some theory about how and you might have 10,000 units in this system, and each unit can make a decision from period to period about whether or not it stays in its current state or it flips to a new state. And you may have one unit and it's surrounded by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's surrounded by 3, 6, 8 units, right? So think about a bunch of dots, and every dot is surrounded by dots. So every unit has 8 neighbors. And there is a probability of any unit switching state, some probability. And if they switch state, in the next state, there is some probability that one of the neighbors may also adopt the behavior of what switches. So this is how ideas propagate in a society, is that I get an idea in my head, and I may be able to, the people around me, influence some of those people who in their networks maybe influence some people who in their networks, etc. So you have ideas that can propagate through a system. And then they run these simulations to see how long a system can stay in equilibrium when a new idea comes in with certain probabilities. And at what level of probability would we then be worried about a system flipping into a new system? In other words, getting out of equilibrium. So every time you have an agent that switches states, that's called a mutation. So that's what that that description is that when you perturb a system with mutations, at what level does the system switch? Turns out it's about 20%. When an idea infects about 20% of the population, or a technology or something, that you get that tipping point where the system flips into a new equilibrium. So to get back to your question, about Nassim Taleb, is that as long as you have a system in one state, even when it's being perturbed by mutations, as long as it doesn't change state, if you have it in one state, the normal distribution is a good descriptor of the activity in that system for certain things that you would expect to follow a normal distribution, like returns to asset prices. It's when the system flips that the normal distribution is no longer a good description. So to determine whether or not we should continue with the normal distribution or not, we would have to know the intensity of the idea by which agents flip. So if it is an idea like AI, well, that's probably not enough to change the state of a system like the financial markets. But if you think about JP Morgan tomorrow announcing bankruptcy, holy shit, right? Well, that's a different thing altogether. That probability, the probability of that infecting people in the system is greater than 20%. You will get a system that flips right away. The normal probability does not do well on states, on a whole state flipping like that. So if we think about Nassim Taleb in that sense, you would say, well, I think you're missing the point, is that in a steady state, the normal distribution is fantastic. It's correct. It's just that we flip from steady state to steady state faster, but the normal distribution is about the state of the system, not the changing of the state of the system. Do you get that? Yes. Is an aging population really deflationary? For goods, yes. For services, not so much. Once people retire, do they not only drop out of the workforce, but also start to consume a lot of services? Yeah, services. Yeah, exactly. If rates are coming down, more houses will be sold, which Redfin makes money on sales of homes. Be a good play on that story. If you think the volume of transactions will increase, anything that makes money off the volume of transactions would be good. Yes, anything that makes money off the volume of transactions. Let's see. My question about destiny goes deeper and is rather theoretical. It would be, I imagine. We can't see the future in any way. Nope. So it doesn't really affect us. But imagine there is a God who knows everything. Everything. He can foresee every decision you make, every shift of your behavior, and predict the butterfly effect years in advance. Can he, or is it happening now and cannot be predicted in any way? So you've got to put a big assumption in there to get that done. And you have a choice to make. You either believe it or you don't. If you believe it, then you are not in control of your own future, which seems to me that is a victim mentality. Or you don't believe it and you are in control of your own future. And that rather than there being one God, think about it this way. You don't have to abandon your faith. You just have to change the way you see your faith. You just have to change the way you see this God thing. That it would seem to me a good creation story would not be that there is some external being that created whatever you see, that created humanity, but that a God transformed themselves into humanity, such that we are all within us gods. We all have the power to create and control our own destiny. God says so, and within me is the power of that God. That a little bit of that is within me at all times. It's not something external judging me. It's something that is within all of us, thereby making us all a brotherhood and sisterhood. We're all humanity. We're all connected by this one thing in us called God, and we all have the power of this God to create a future. Because what did God do? In the beginning, there was nothing, right? There was nothing. God created the future. We have the ability to create the future. Are we not saying at any given time in the beginning, right now, there is nothing, and I can create the future? You can write your own 7-day book. On day 1, I did this. On day 2, I did this. Can I get an amen up in here? Right? Just reposition where you put God. Rather than external to you where you're a victim and things happen to you, it is internal to you, and you are part of this thing called God. You are a creator. You get to create. What do you want to create today? Right? Do you want to live in darkness or do you want to live in light? I want to live in light. On the first day, God separated the night from the day. Do that on your first day. Choose light, not darkness. There's your first day. There's your first day. On your second day, separate the oceans from the land. I think that's what he did on the second day. Because you don't want to be adrift in a sea of nothingness. You want to anchor yourself to something, right? Look at this. Look how fun this is. Look what we can do. We can reinterpret the whole thing. Are you alive? Do you feel it? Are you energized? Right? Just change where you put your God. You don't have to abandon it. All right. This concept is in Hinduism. Okay, well then. All right. I think we're good. 3 hours, 4 minutes. It's 2:55. It's almost my first meal time. I don't eat till 3 in the afternoon, and it is 3. I will be on Tuesday night at 10. No. Stupid. At 8. I'll be on at 8. I will have Globex open on one screen. I have 2 accounts, so I'll have them on both screens, and I'll live stream. I'll answer questions. I'll, as the results come in, we'll see if any of the results, how the results are affecting the market. It might give us an indication what the market thinks by who's winning at where, who's in the lead on what, by where futures go, by who's in the lead. We might get, even if we get no winner, we'll get at least what we think the market might have been thinking at the time. That might be good enough to work with. All right. Go out now and be most unequal. And I will see you Tuesday night. Ciao.